Beyond the red horizon. The gift of an ancient power. The price of keeping it hidden. By Adeline Pierce. Copyright 2025 Adeline Pierce. All rights reserved. Prologue. They said the horizon was red long before they saw it. Not the polite, painted red of sunsets that promised a warm night, but a raw, incandescent band that sat on the earth like a wound. It hummed in the heat, and when the sun folded behind it, the air seemed to remember the color and keep breathing it out slowly, like an animal trying to sleep. Mia had been laughing a minute earlier. She laughed the way people do when they're trying to convince themselves nothing is wrong. Loudly, a little too high, a sound that carried across flat land and skittered off the dry scrub. Ethan had his hand on the wheel of the battered van, eyes narrowed against the sun, the map folded and refolded in his lap. Connor and Dylan argued about a stupid playlist. Jade took photographs of the sky and pretended she was composing an album cover. Sophie walked barefoot at the back of the convoy, ankles dusted with rust-brown dirt, humming a tune none of them knew the words to. They had been in Australia for only a month, and already the novelty wore like a damp cloth. Working visas had promised long days and short pay, but also freedom. To step off an expected path, to make mistakes under a foreign sun. After the first fortnight of fruit-picking in hostel dorms and the hollow glow of cheap phones, that freedom had started to feel less like a promise and more like a dare. So they drove. They drove away from the busier tracks and the services with their plastic signs and cheap coffee, toward places marked only by tiny crosses on maps and the occasional whisper of a pastoral name. The day was a fluke of light, too clear to be kind, too sharp to be comfortable. None of them noticed the way the land began to change until the road stopped being road and their tires hummed on red sand instead of blacktop. It was a color that let them know they were no longer passing through, but had entered something older, something that had always been there and would be there long after the van was only rust and memory. They walked that afternoon because walking felt like an answer. The phone signals had gone when the road left the map. They joked about the novelty of being unreachable, and there were moments, stolen, bright, when they believed they had done the bravest thing of their lives. They shared a cigarette, split an apple, argued about whether Melbourne would miss them. It felt like the sort of story you told later, in a kitchen in some future life, with wine stains on the table and the ache of youth behind you. Mia found the snake before anyone else did. She saw it as a shadow that didn't belong, a slick seam of darker color half buried under a tuft of grass, and because she thought she had all the time in the world, she knelt to look closer. The bite was blindingly quick, a tiny clinical shock, as though someone had taken a pin to the inside of her calf. 1 second she was laughing. The next she had fallen forward with a sound that tore the cavalcade of their noise open. Heard in other circumstances, the thud of a body hitting hard-packed earth might have been a joke. Heard here in that empty place, it was the beginning of the world rearranging itself. Sophie screamed. Ethan's hand was on her before he knew it. Connor cursed and moved in a blur. Jade fumbled for a camera and dropped it. Dylan ran circles and offered everything he had. Water, sugar, prayers, none of which would slow the color draining from Mia's face. Eyes rimmed with a violet bruise of panic. Mia sat back on her heels and tried to make a joke, then failed because her tongue felt thicker than it should. Her legs buckled. They propped her up, poured water between trembling fingers, made the kind of plans people make when they have no plan at all. Phones were useless. The van was a humiliating distance away. There was no memorial of a path, no sign of other travelers. Heat wrapped them, close as a hand. She tasted metal and regret, and the copper bitterness of wrong decisions. There was a hollow pressure in her jaw that sounded like a bell to the others. Something absolute had started to pull through her, and whatever it was contagious in a way that fear is contagious. A seam-like thing running from chest to throat to visible white at the corners of their eyes. They argued about going back, about walking to the van, about leaving her. None of the words were steady enough to carry the weight of choice. Sophie held Mia's hand because there was nothing else to hold. Ethan paced, and finally he did the only thing that felt less like surrender and more like action. He shouted until his voice shredded with sound and the scrub swallowed it. The answer arrived the way the land itself did, slow, unannounced, and older than their frantic lives. It was a shape that had been there and not there, like a thought you remember having had a minute before and can't say where it started. At first they thought a mirage. A man, very old but not fragile, standing at the edge of their sight where the land fell away into a riverless basin. His cloak was the color of bark in dust, and something else they could not name. He moved with the easy certainty of someone who belongs to a place the way a tree belongs to a field. No one moved. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. The man's face was a map of small creases and long silences. His eyes, dark, patient, not unkind, took them the way a tide takes a stone and keeps it. "You shouldn't be here," he said in a voice that had the soft cadences of something learned by listening more than by speaking. It carried no anger. It carried the weight of rule they had been born to ignore. They gabbled. Explanations folded on themselves. He did not ask for proof, did not ask about visas or hostels or the wastefulness of youth. He only moved forward, slow as a thought, and when he crouched beside Mia, the red dirt seemed to rearrange itself under his knees like a carpet laid by invisible hands. He put his palm on her leg. The touch was softer than anyone expected and harder than anything they had felt from the world that morning. Light spilled from him in a small, hard column. No, not light as a lamp, but light like the inner sound of a bell, something that bent and wrapped around the wound and made it less like a wound and more like an instruction. The others flinched. Even the air adjusted. Mia's breathing, which had been shallow and brittle, cleaved into a pattern that matched the rhythm of that light. It was not painful. It was not the spectacular thing of films, but something quieter and more complete. The kind of moment where every body part remembers its name again. Color returned to her lips. The bruise under her, I stopped moving outward. The wound closed not with a skinless seam, but as though the land itself were knitting it with thread grown from its own red fibers. When the man withdrew his hand, he left a warmth that seemed to belong to the world and not strictly to them. Mia opened her eyes and smiled, the dangerous, foolish smile of someone who's been given back time. "Who?" Ethan began, but the old man cut him off with a small tilt of his head. "Names can be heavy," he said. "We use them here for something else. You carry too much of your own world." He glanced at their shaking phones, the discarded map, the lens of a camera still skittering with dust. "Sit, eat, drink." They ate. They drank. There was tea with bitter leaves that tasted of places they couldn't easily name, and a bread heavy with grain. The community, when they reached it, folded around them like a house around an ember, steady, unremarked, unimaginably old. When the first terror passed and the small, practical tasks of care took its place, cleaning a wound, bolstering a trembling limb, repairing a sole with string, Ethan found himself staring at the man's hands. They were the same hands that had made the light. Scarred, certain, with small silver lines along the fingers where work and age had met. Later, under a roof that smelled of smoke and earth and slow food, while the others slept, Mia's breath even and steady, the man spoke of things that did not fit neatly into the stories they brought with them. "You were brought here," he said, and in that simple phrase lay accusation and invitation together. Not lost, but called. They did not understand. Of course they did not. They had been young, maybe old enough to be dangerous, and the world had been a thing to be escaped. They would learn that the outback kept its own ledger. They would give as much as it asked, that some gifts had a weight attached. But that night, with the red horizon keeping vigil at the edges of sleep, they learned one other thing, that there are places where the world remembers more than you do, places where a light can come from a hand and mend what a car cannot break. They learned, too, that some promises are not made by people but by the land itself. And once you've been given such a promise, it does not feel like yours to refuse. Chapter 1. The day before everything changes. Manchester, England, June 11th, 6:12 a.m. The morning began with rain. Not the dramatic kind that slashed against windows or flooded sidewalks, but the soft, gray drizzle that Manchester seemed to exhale from its lungs. Steady, predictable, woven into every memory the six of them had of growing up and becoming someone else. In 3 different parts of the city, 6 alarms began to ring. Ethan, the first, belonged to Ethan Wells. He lived in a semi-detached house on a quiet street lined with small, stubborn rose bushes his mother refused to give up on, despite the weather trying to murder them every winter. Ethan's room looked like a battlefield. half-packed boxes leaning against the desk, travel websites open on a laptop, laundry resigned to its fate. The alarm rang. Ethan opened one eye. 6:12. Too early for self-improvement, he thought, slamming the alarm with a groan. Downstairs, he heard the kettle click on his mother, without even checking if he was awake, preparing tea like she had every day of his life. Ethan, breakfast. Her voice traveled through the house. He lay there for one more minute, staring at the cracks on the ceiling, feeling that strange surge in his chest, the mixture of excitement and fear that comes when everything you've known for years is about to end. Tomorrow he would graduate. In 3 weeks, he would leave the country. He exhaled slowly, one step at a time. He threw on jeans, dragged a sweatshirt over his head, and went downstairs. His mother, Fiona, already had the tea poured and toast on a plate, butter melting into the surface. "You look nervous," she said, handing him a mug. Ethan shrugged. "I am not nervous. I'm pre-nervous." "That's not a thing, love." He grinned. "Will be. I'll patent it." His mother kissed his forehead, something she rarely did now, and he let her. He caught her eyes, soft and proud, and for the first time he saw her fear too. He's leaving soon. MIA. Across the city, Mia Lambert sat cross-legged on a sofa in her parents' terrace house, already dressed and ready. Her dark hair was tied loosely, still damp from the shower, her nails painted a reckless shade of blue. On the coffee table was the breakfast her father insisted on making every morning. Scrambled eggs, toast, and exactly 3 pieces of bacon laid out with surgical precision. "What if I trip on stage tomorrow?" she muttered. "You won't," her mother said, kissing her head absently as she rushed past, already late for work. Her father lowered the newspaper. "And if you do, then congratulations, you'll be memorable." Mia smiled, tension leaving her shoulders. Her family always made her feel seen. When her phone buzzed, she grabbed it immediately. Group chat, the Magnificent Six. Jade. 6:28 a.m. Someone please kill me, Connor. 6:29 a.m. Just skip breakfast, Jade. 6:29 a.m. I can't skip breakfast, I'm Italian. Skipping breakfast is a sin, Dylan. 6:30 a.m. I'm still asleep, leave me alone, Sophie. 6:31 a.m. Can we all meet early today? I want pictures before rehearsal. Ethan. 6:32 a.m. Coffee first. Life second. Mia typed. Mia, on my way. Connor. Connor Blake's family lived in a large modern townhouse, the kind with wide windows and minimalist furniture that made everything echo slightly. His parents were already seated at the breakfast bar, his father scrolling through emails, his mother flicking through a fashion magazine. Connor walked in wearing jogging pants and a hoodie, hair messy, eyes barely open. His mother's eyes lifted. "You're not wearing that to breakfast, are you?" "A beat. It's breakfast," Connor replied. "Not the Royal Opera House." His father hid a chuckle behind his coffee cup. Connor grabbed a bowl, poured cereal, and leaned against the counter. His parents didn't ask about exams. They didn't need to. They expected success as naturally as they expected sunrise. "You should wear the Navy suit tomorrow," his mother said. "It photographs better." Connor said nothing. He had gotten used to people planning his life for him, except his friends. With them, he finally breathed. Jade. Jade Russo lived above her parents' bakery. At 6:40 a.m., the shop was already alive with the smell of warm bread and sugar, trays clattering, customers lining up for espresso. Jade's father handed her a cappuccino with a heart in the foam. "For good luck," he said, kissing her cheek and dusting flour onto her shoulder. Her mother pinched her face affectionately. "La mia laureata," she whispered proudly. Jade exhaled. "I'm terrified." Her parents laughed. "Being terrified means you care," her father said. "Only the dead feel nothing." She drank her cappuccino in 3 grateful gulps. Dylan. Dylan Brooks lived with his older sister in a cramped apartment with peeling wallpaper and an unreliable boiler. They didn't have much, but they had music, records stacked everywhere, guitars leaning against walls, the soft chaos of creative lives. Dylan ate cereal standing up, headphones around his neck. "You done packing?" his sister asked. "For Australia?" he shrugged. "I'll just shove everything in a backpack." She rolled her eyes. "You're going across the world, not across the street." He smiled. Truth was, Dylan wasn't afraid of leaving. He was afraid of staying. Sophie. The Alice family house was the opposite of Dylan's. It was tidy, silent, framed diplomas like wallpaper. Sophie sat at the dining table with her little brother, Oliver, who was trying to convince her to add a dinosaur to her graduation cap. You promised, Oliver insisted. No, you promised for me, Sophie corrected, cutting his toast into neat triangles. But dinosaurs are cool. Your logic is strong. He grinned. She kissed his forehead. Her father walked in carrying coffee. Nervous? No, Sophie lied. Her leg bounced under the table. He squeezed her shoulder. You've worked too hard to doubt yourself now. Oliver leaned close. After graduation, will you spend more time with me? The question hit her like a stone. Of course, she whispered, even if she had no idea how. Later that morning, campus. By 9 a.m., the drizzle had stopped, leaving the campus shiny and washed, puddles reflecting bits of sky. The six met outside the main lecture hall. Mia was first, leaning against a rail, tapping her foot. Ethan arrived next, shaking raindrops off his hair. You okay? Mia asked. No, he said. Yes, he added. She laughed softly. Then came Jade, handing out pastries from the bakery for stress purposes. Sophie hugged everyone. Dylan pretended to hate hugs, but didn't move away. Connor joined last, key spinning on his finger, too cool for nerves or pretending to be. 6 different lives, 6 different dreams. Yet standing together, they felt like home. Mia looked at the others, voice soft. Tomorrow we graduate. Yeah, Ethan said. And today is the last day of being this. Students, Sophie clarified. Idiots, Connor corrected. Alive, Dylan added dramatically. Jade threw a piece of croissant at him. Eat carbs and shut up. They laughed. But there was something else in the silence afterward. Something unspoken. Tomorrow would be different. In 3 weeks, they would leave the country. But for now, they linked arms and walked toward their last rehearsal before the ceremony. 6 silhouettes against the gray Manchester sky, unaware that the horizon waiting for them was not gray. It was red. Chapter 2. The Final Exam. Manchester, June 11th, 10:30 a.m. The lecture hall smelled of damp coats and nervous breath. It was a smell of too many people trying to make important decisions at once. Perfume and printer ink, stale coffee and ambition. Wooden benches rose in tiers like small, polite cliffs. At the front, a projector flickered, waiting for Professor to turn it on and make the day official. They met at the back row, like conspirators in a play who knew the lines they hadn't learned yet. Ethan's hands were steady enough on the paper exam until he looked at Mia. She was 2 seats over, head bent, pen moving like a metronome. When she glanced up and their eyes met, he felt a small, private loosen in his chest, the kind of thing that whispered, "We'll be okay even when everything felt precarious." The exam was supposed to be the final fence to jump. Contemporary literature, in practice. For some reason it had a reputation for being cruel. Papers thick with arcane theory, and exam questions crafted like riddles. The professor, a man with a thinning beard and a habit of tapping his pen like a metronome, had been kind in his offhand way. "We write to find ourselves," he'd said, "and sometimes to lose what we were." It sounded less kind now. It sounded like a warning. Mia breathed in slow and steady. She remembered her father's joke about tripping on stage. She imagined him in his chair back home, newspaper folded in his lap, the exact 3 pieces of bacon waiting on the plate he prepared that morning. She wrote, the letters of her sentences folding together into ideas she'd practiced at night. Touching themes, not losing the thread. Connor looked like he'd rather be anywhere. He doodled an impossible skyline in the margin and pretended the exam had nothing to do with him. In truth, he was terrified of expectation. He prided himself on making decisions on the fly, and yet here the future felt peculiarly tied to small choices. Essays handed in, eyes meeting, plans half-formed and fragile. Jade chewed the end of her pen. Her handwriting was small and precise, the same way she decorated cupcakes and framed photos. She wrote about images, scene, memory, the things that mattered to her, because they could be tasted and smelled and touched. Dylan's answers were raw energy. Where the questions called for order, He gave it a pulse. When a prompt asked about the relationship between memory and place, he thought, without irony, of the kitchen in his flat and the vinyl records winking in the corner. For him, the page was a stage. For Sophie, the page was a bomb. She had learned to make sentences like bandages, neat and sure. Her essay read like someone gently mending a wound, so it could be looked at without flinching. The exam paper lay like a small, necessary battlefield between them. Outside, rain tapped at the windows the way small, impatient hands do when they want attention. Inside, each student built the architecture of the person they hope to be. 2 hours is a long time in the life of a 22-year-old. It stretches and compresses, condenses into all the moments you want to keep. They wrote. They rewrote. A few times they passed notes. Small, cowardly, warm, tucked beneath the exam paper to remind each other stupid things. Coffee after, Ethan's scribble read. Photographs later, Jade wrote, Danny wants to put a dinosaur on my hat. Sophie had scribbled with a wobbly heart for Oliver. When time was called, someone near the front groaned like someone releasing a hell breath. They rose as one, shoulders a little straighter, a little afraid to see what measure their work would be taken by. Outside the hall, the campus rolled on in the wet afternoon. Students clustered under umbrellas. Someone had set up a small table with cheap champagne and paper cups. It felt unceremonious and urgent all at once, like the beginning of a life that was trying to insist on being more than a series of appointments. They walked to their favorite cafe, the one with the chipped blue tiles, and a barista who always spelled their names wrong on purpose. The place smelled like steam and lemon oil. The counter stacked pastries like trophies. You write well, Jade said, stirring her coffee slowly, watching the cream swirl. Not as well as you, Mia said without looking up. Stop. Connor pretended to be modest. He took a piece of Pano chocolate and bit into it like it was a dare. You'll be fine, Sophie said. Her voice had the shape of someone who believed in truth because she needed it to be so. She took Oliver's text message on her phone, little drawings he'd sent to cheer her day, and showed them around the table. Dylan watched everyone, a small smile in the corner of his mouth that told of jokes that lived in the cracks of his mind. Ethan frowned, then pushed the cup closer and told him something he hadn't finished saying during the exam. You ever think about how everything sort of lines up and then it doesn't? Like, 1 minute we have lectures and deadlines, and then, bam, there's a horizon and it's red somewhere far away, and you don't know if you're supposed to go or stay. They laughed because the phrase was dramatic, but there was truth in it. Their conversations began to circle around the same small fears. How make rent in a month? Who would take their flat? Who would be left answering the phone calls from home? It was a practical fear, and also a strange, deeper fear. The fear of becoming an adult who had made the wrong choice. You're thinking about Australia already, Dylan said, teasing. Don't jinx the future, man. Ethan shrugged. I'm not thinking. I'm just watching. You planning to bring the van? Connor asked. His voice held a note of suggestion that wanted to be more than a plan. Ethan hesitated. In truth, he had been spending nights looking at second-hand vans and hostel reviews, reading travel blogs with the kind of commitment most people reserve for relationships. But he kept those details small, like a private map tucked inside him. Outside, a group of first-years squealed and passed, loud enough to remind them of the smallness of the world when you were on the wrong side of it. They paid their bill, pockets jingling with change and future obligations. They split up to gather final things. One last meeting with professors, a last load of washing, a last round of hugs. Each had a small private ritual. Mia checked her graduation gown for a loose thread. Connor borrowed his father's Navy suit because his mother had insisted. Jade photographed the inside of the bakery one more time, searching for a frame that would be both true and kind. Dylan borrowed his sister's old jacket because it smelled like home. Sophie wrapped Oliver's drawing in tissue and placed it in her bag like a relic. There was, beneath everything, a quiet current of doubt and possibility. They were all, if they were honest, afraid. Not of failure exactly, but of things that failure would force them to become. People who stayed in cities they didn't like, who took the safe job, who let their story be restyled by practicality. That evening they convened at Connor's house for one last proper dinner before the official ceremony. Connor's mother had prepared roast chicken. His father poured wine as if to mark the gravity of the event. Small gestures that felt like they belonged to moments carved in stone. They ate and remembered and argued about the smallest things, like who had suffered the most during the degree. Ethan, they decided, because he had taken thesis, and who had the worst coffee-drinking habits, Dylan, unanimously, and who had slept through lectures, Connor, again unanimously. Between bites, they talked about their plans. Some were half-jokes at first. Mia said she'd travel. Dylan said he'd make a record. Sophie promised to spend more time with Oliver. Then the talk grew bolder, edged away from flippancy into a dangerous sincerity. What if we actually go? Jade said. Her voice dropped. There was a tremor of something like hope. Connor cleaned his plate and shrugged. I could always use a break from financial planning. Ethan looked at them all, each face lit by the dim light of the dining room, and felt that small, sharp surge again, the urge to do something that later he could point to and say, that's when we were alive. What if, Sophie said, soft as ever, we didn't book return flights? They laughed. It was a joke and also an offering. After dinner, they walked the canal and sat on the damp embankment. The city lights reflected in the water like shy stars. Someone produced a cheap bottle of cider, and they passed around. Warm hands, cold drink, the air filled with low, satisfied contentment. Promise me, Mia said suddenly. She was always the one to break into truth like that. Promise we'll still be honest with each other. If something is wrong, we tell. Ethan looked at her, the resolve in his eyes like a small lighthouse. Promise. They made little promises then. To write, to send postcards, to meet again in 5 years, whatever 5 years might mean. The promises had the weight of things you hope can be made true by words alone. When they returned to their rooms, the city felt both huge and oddly intimate. The rain had slowed to something that glistened on window panes like memory. Alone, Ethan lay awake for a long time, thinking through every small step that led here. The first seminar where he'd met Connor, the coffee shop where Mia had spilled her drink and laughed, the moment Dylan taught them a song, and everyone realized the world could be different. He thought about the red horizon he'd joked about earlier, and for the first time the image did not feel like a joke. It felt like a line drawn in the sand. Tomorrow they would stand on a stage and receive paper that would say they could call themselves graduates. The day after tomorrow, their lives would begin to rearrange themselves. Ethan closed his eyes, and in the dark the campus hummed like a living thing, a place where small choices would soon make all the difference. Chapter 3. The Ceremony. Manchester, June 12th. Graduation day, 7:04 a.m. The sun rose late, like it wasn't sure it wanted to show up. A thin haze of gold filtered over the rooftops and wet pavement, catching on the puddles from last night's rain. The air smelled like cut grass and the sharp tang of fresh coffee drifting from open apartment windows. Somewhere a dog barked, impatient to start the day. Inside, 4 different homes. 4 alarms rang at once. Inside, 2 more. Excitement woke them before the alarms even had the chance to sound. Sophie was already dressed. The gown hung perfectly, her hair curled and pinned with quiet precision. She moved silently down the hallway, her steps soft as feathers on the carpet. Oliver sat at the kitchen table, legs kicking back and forth, eyes bright as coins reflecting the morning light. There she is. Oliver beamed when he saw her. You look like a superhero. She laughed, kneeling to adjust his bow tie. No heroes today, just graduates. That's the same thing, he insisted, solemn. Her father appeared in the doorway, mug in hand. His smile was soft, tired, overflowed with a pride that was almost painful to hold. Ready, Soph? She nodded, but her voice betrayed her. No. Oliver took her hand. I'll clap the loudest. And somehow that made her ready. Ethan's room was chaos. The black gown was flung across his bed. One shoe was under the desk, the other mysteriously in the bathroom. He had lost his tie twice already. His mum hovered in the doorway, arms folded, tea steaming between her palms. You know, she said, voice dry, most people try on their graduation clothes before the day. I tried, he muttered, fighting the tie. It tried to kill me. She crossed the room and took the tie from his hands. Stop strangling yourself and stand still. He did. She looped the fabric around his collar, fingers nimble from decades of tying school uniforms. When she finished, she rested her palm on his cheek. When we drop you off at the airport next month, she whispered, try not to forget where home is. A lump formed at his throat. I won't, he promised, knowing full well home was about to become a moving target. Jade. At the bakery, the morning rush was already in full swing. Coffee grinders roared. Milk steamed. Croissants flew into paper bags. The bell over the door jingled in a frantic rhythm. Jade's mother grabbed her shoulders and kissed her repeatedly on both cheeks. Photography, see? You take pictures of everything today. I will. Her father wiped his hands on his apron and placed a warm pastry box into Jade's arms. For your friends. Sweetness before success. She laughed. You're giving me carbs as emotional support? Always, her father said proudly. She left smelling of sugar, espresso, and family. Connor stood in front of his mirror in the navy suit. He hated how good it looked. His mother hovered, smoothing non-existent wrinkles from a jacket. You will stand tall, she instructed. Confident. A Blake excels. Connor's jaw tightened. A Blake, not Connor. Just a surname with a legacy stitched inside. He forced a smile. If I faint on stage, pretend I'm doing performance art. His father laughed. His mother did not. Dylan woke up to a post that stuck to his forehead. You're late to your future. His sister had drawn a crooked heart next to the message. He rolled off the couch, because yes, he had fallen asleep on the couch in his gown, and groaned dramatically. Kill me. His sister peeked from the kitchen. Not before the ceremony. I want a picture. She tossed him toast. He caught it with his mouth. Winner, she declared, raising her coffee like a trophy. He grinned. Underneath the sarcasm, nerves prickled like electricity under the skin. MIA. Mia sat at the edge of her bed, staring at her gown, not touching it, just staring. Her stomach was a fist, her throat tight. Her father sat beside her, placing a gentle hand over hers. Tomorrow you begin a new chapter, he said softly. Today, just turn the page. She leaned into him. She always had that feeling that life was waiting for her somewhere else, as if something unnamed, something huge, was just beyond the horizon. Today didn't feel like a finish line. It felt like a starting gun. 8:52 a.m., Campus Square. The six of them spotted each other through the crowd. Black gowns, caps, tassels. Families, balloons, tears, photographers barking orders. And then there they were. Ethan, Mia, Connor, Jade, Dylan, Sophie, their faces broken to relieved, fierce smiles. Jade shoved the pastry box into Ethan's hands. Breakfast or emotional support, your choice. Connor straightened Dylan's gown. You look like you got dressed in the dark. I did get dressed in the dark. Sophie pulled them all together into a tight group hug. We made it, she whispered. Mia's eyes prickled with sudden tears. We actually made it. They stayed linked together until the loudspeaker crackled. Ceremony auditorium. The hall smelled of flowers and fresh wood polish. Parents snapped photos. Professors adjusted microphones. The dean gave a speech full of metaphors about journeys, futures, maps without borders. But the moment that mattered was when each name was called. Sophie Alice. Oliver jumped from his seat and clapped like he was trying to summon the sun. Connor Blake. His parents clapped perfectly in rhythm. Connor looked for the 5 faces that made him feel like himself. Jade Russo. Her father whistled. Her mother cried. Dylan Brooks. His sister stood on her chair. The auditorium roared with laughter. Mia Lambert. She walked across the stage like a spark, bright, intentional, alive. Ethan Wells. He crossed last, heart pounding. They sat afterward, diplomas in their hands, looking at each other. Is this it? Is this how adulthood starts? Jade whispered. Can I say something stupid? Always. Dylan said. I don't want this to end. Ethan looked at them all. The air around them felt heavy, electric. This doesn't end, he murmured. Not unless we let it. They didn't know then, that months later, under a brutal Australian sun. Those same words would crack like prophecy. After the ceremony, campus lawn. Families came and went. Photos, confetti, cake, speeches. By the afternoon, the six slipped away from the chaos and found refuge under an old oak tree on the far corner campus. Connor lay on the grass, arms behind his head. Jade and Sophie shared a pastry. Mia took photos with her Polaroid. Dylan tuned an imaginary guitar. Ethan stared at the sky like he was reading something written there. Mia snapped a picture of him. The print slid out. She waved it dry. In the photo, Ethan wasn't looking at the camera. He was looking at the horizon. A faint line of light, red, like a warning, or a calling. Evening, rooftop pub. At sunset, the six found themselves on a rooftop of a downtown pub. Strung fairy lights, sticky tables, the smell of fried chips and warm ale. They clinked glasses. To us, Ethan said. To the present, Sophie added. To the absolutely reckless future, Dylan grinned. They drank. They laughed. They let the city blur into a memory. And then, without deciding to, without meaning to, without planning anything, they made the choice that would change the rest of their lives. It wasn't a speech. It wasn't dramatic. It was a sentence from Connor, said offhandedly while staring at the glowing skyline. What if, he murmured, we took that working visa idea seriously? Silence. Ethan set his drink down slowly. Mia's heart sped up. Jade held her breath. Sophie bit her lip. Dylan sat up straight. Ethan met their eyes. This is it. This is the moment. We go together, Ethan said. Mia nodded. Jade whispered, Australia. Sophie's voice trembled. All of us. Dylan grinned. No return tickets. Connor raised his glass. To whatever lies beyond the red horizon. They clinked their glasses again, and this time the sound echoed like destiny. Chapter 4. The pub meeting. The pub still smelled like old wood, spilled cider, and 100 nights that none of them would ever get back. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't even particularly clean. But for 4 years, it had been theirs. Sophie pushed the door open first, still wearing the white dress she had used under her graduation gown. Her heels clicked against the floorboards, and she blinked as her eyes adjusted to the dim light. The others followed. Ethan with his tie loosened around his neck, Connor balancing 3 jackets on his arm, Jade complaining about her shoes, Dylan yawning like he hadn't slept in days, and Mia holding her camera as if it were another limb. They claimed the round table near the window, the one where they had studied for finals, cried over breakups, and planned impossible futures. This feels illegal, Jade murmured. We're celebrating, but for what? We don't have a plan. We don't need a plan tonight, Dylan said, dropping into a seat. Tonight we just breathe. Sophie stood for a moment, staring at all of them before sitting down. It's weird, she confessed. I thought I'd feel different. Graduated. Like some switch would flip inside me. Maybe it hasn't hit yet, Mia said. Ethan tapped the table twice, as if knocking on fate. Or maybe we're supposed to hit it first. Connor returned from the bar, carrying a tray of drinks. Ladies, gentlemen, and Jade. Why am I separated from both categories? She snapped. Connor grinned. Because you transcend them. Jade tried to glare, but a small smile escaped. Connor distributed the drinks. He kept a pint for himself and rested his elbows on the table. So, he said, let's talk futures. No, Dylan whined. Too soon. But Sophie forced herself to meet the moment. I'm scared, she admitted. Everyone expects that now that we're graduates, we should know what comes next. Jobs, internships, deadlines. That sounds like a prison sentence, Jade muttered. Exactly. A silence settled. One of those rare, heavy ones. Connor leaned back. What if, he started, voice casual, we just leave? Jade blinked. Leave where? Anywhere. Somewhere far. Hot. Dramatic. Australia or something. Dylan snorted. Yeah, right. Let's move to Australia. Maybe ride a kangaroo to work. Connor shrugged. I'm serious. Mia leaned forward, slowly. Why Australia? Because it's literally on the other side of the world. Connor said, "If we're going to start over, might as well do it properly." Sophie laughed softly, but her eyes didn't. "What would we do there?" Ethan lifted his pint, voice steady. "There's a working holiday visa. 1 year. You can work, travel, explore. No cubicles. No desks. Just freedom." Jade's glass froze halfway to her lips. "That's real. Real." Ethan nodded. "I've looked it up before." Before when? Sophie wondered. How long had he been considering leaving? Dylan didn't joke this time. "So we just go?" "We'd choose a date," Mia said slowly. "Buy a ticket." "Darwin," Connor said. "Start in the north. Go where the desert meets the ocean." The group fell quiet. Everyone looked at everyone else. It wasn't a joke anymore. Sophie spoke first, voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want to get stuck. Not in a job I hate. Not in a life that doesn't feel like mine." Jade lifted her glass. "I don't want to wake up at 40 and realize I never did anything insane." Dylan shrugged. "I don't want to regret staying." Mia inhaled sharply, camera forgotten on the table. "I want to see something I've never seen before." Connor raised his drink. "So, Australia?" All eyes went to Ethan. He didn't speak immediately. He looked at them like someone memorizing a moment before it slipped away. Then he lifted his glass. One-way ticket. The 6 glasses touched in the middle. Awkward, uneven, imperfect, but solid. A decision. Sophie felt her heart change shape. Ethan whispered, almost to himself, "Beyond the red horizon." Chapter 5. The day after. Ethan woke up to the kind of silence that made everything from the night before feel unreal. His phone, face down on the nightstand, vibrated once, then 3 more times. A group chat explosion. Jade, 7:14 a.m. Someone remind me why we made a life-altering decision while drinking beer, Connor. 7:15 a.m. because that's where greatness is born, Sophie. 7:16 a.m. guys, we're really doing this, Dylan. 7:16 a.m. I regret everything, Mia. 7:17 a.m. I don't. Ethan didn't answer. Instead, he pushed himself upright and stared at the walls of his small apartment. Manchester felt different this morning. Smaller. He had 24 hours to do something harder than leaving. Tell his father. Sophie's house smelled like toast and orange marmalade. Her parents had set the table, as if it were any normal morning. Sophie sat down slowly, her diploma still in its tube leaning against the wall. Her mother poured tea, without looking up. "So," she said casually, "when do you start applying for positions? Marketing firms recruit early, you know." Sophie swallowed. "I'm not applying. Not here." Both parents froze. Her father blinked. "What do you mean, not here?" "I'm moving to Australia." Complete silence. Her mother finally set the teapot down, porcelain clicking against wood. "Sophie," she whispered, "this isn't who you are." Sophie felt her voice tremble, but didn't let it break. "No, this is exactly who I am. I just never had the courage to show it." She stood. Her heart was a drum. She left her half-finished tea on the table. Upstairs in her room, she typed in the group chat, "Sophie, 10:02 a.m. I told them. They didn't like it. I still want to go." Connor's family treated breakfast like a board meeting. His mother brought out color-coded folders with job listings. His father spoke in acronyms, MBA, ROI, Fortune 500. Connor raised his glass of orange juice. Cheers to change. His parents didn't smile. "I'm moving to Australia," he said. They didn't blink. "You're wasting your potential," his father replied. "Maybe," Connor said, "but at least it'll be my potential to waste." He walked out of the room before anyone could answer. Jade didn't do subtle. She announced her decision the moment she stepped through the door. "Mama, parto per Australia." Her mother dropped a pan. "Che cosa, per quanto tempo?" "A year." Her mother stared at her like she had confessed to murder. "Jade, say imposita. Tu non puoi." "I can," Jade snapped, "and I will." The argument exploded into Italian. Fast, loud, all vowels and fire. Jade slammed her bedroom door. So hard that dust fell from the hallway frame. Her hands shook. She texted with trembling fingers. "Jade, 12:46 p.m. She thinks I'm crazy. I'm still going. Dylan didn't tell a parent. He told the only person who mattered. His little sister, Emma, sat cross-legged on the couch watching cartoons, cereal in hand. You know how I always promised we'd see the world someday? He asked. Emma looked up, eyes wide. Yeah, I'm going to start now. Australia. She blinked. The spoon stopped halfway to her mouth. Can I come? His chest tightened. Not yet, but I'll take pictures and call and come back. Emma stood and wrapped her arms around him. He hugged her for a long time. Mia didn't ask permission. She simply informed. Her parents barely looked up from their laptops. I'm moving to Australia, she said. No, you're not, her father replied automatically. Yes, Mia said quietly. I am. Her mother finally looked up. You're throwing away stability. I'm choosing myself. For the first time in years, her parents had nothing to say. Ethan stood on the porch of his childhood home. He knocked once, although he still had a key. His father opened the door. Same gray eyes, same silence. You're supposed to start at the firm Monday, his father said. I'm not staying, Ethan replied. I'm leaving on a working holiday visa. Australia. His father stared at him long enough that Ethan felt every year of disappointment. And what will you find there? Ethan looked him in the eye. Something that isn't here. His father closed the door without a word. That night, the group chat lit up again. Sophie, 9:03 p.m. I'm scared. Jade, 9:04 p.m. Me too. Connor, 9:05 p.m. We could be scared together. Dylan, 9:06 p.m. I'm in. Mia, 9:06 p.m. Same. Ethan, 9:07 p.m. Tomorrow we buy the tickets. 6 screens. 6 pulses of light in 6 different rooms. Same decision. Same horizon. Beyond it all, their new life waited. Chapter 6. The One-Way Ticket. Connor's living room had never felt so small. Blankets were draped over the back of the couch. An empty pizza box sat on the coffee table, and 6 laptops were open like portals to the rest of the world. It felt like war headquarters, if war smelled faintly like pepperoni and stale energy drinks. Sophie paced near the window, twisting her hair between her fingers. I can't breathe, she said. You're breathing, Mia answered gently, typing something on her laptop, just very dramatically. Jade threw a pillow at Dylan. Stop eating. We're supposed to be nervous. I could be nervous and eat, Dylan mumbled, mouth full of chips. Multitasking. Ethan sat at the dining table, already on the official Australian visa site, looking more focused than any professor had ever seen him. Connor walked in holding 6 mugs of coffee like a barista who regretted every life decision. Caffeine, he announced, because our nerves clearly aren't enough. He handed a mug to Ethan. Did you check flights? I checked everything, Ethan replied. There's a flight from Manchester to Sydney, then a connection to Darwin. Cheapest fare is, wow, that's a lot of zeros. Sophie froze. How many zeros? Jade leaned in. The expensive kind, that will starve but will survive kind? Mid-range euros. Ethan said, will starve but attractively. Connor clapped once. All right, it's time. Cards out. Phones off. No one leaves until we buy those tickets. Dylan raised a hand. What if my card gets rejected and I die of embarrassment? Jade didn't look up from her computer. Then we bury you with your dignity. Next. Sophie laughed, but her knees felt weak. Until now the decision had been abstract, romantic. Today it became real. Ethan turned his laptop so everyone could see the screen. Passengers, 6. He typed each name, slowly, as if engraving them into reality. Sophie Alice Connor Blake, Jade Russo Dylan Brooks Mia Lambert Ethan Wells. Sophie stared at her own name and wondered what her parents were doing at that exact moment. Probably trying to pretend their daughter hadn't just detonated her future at breakfast. Okay, Ethan whispered. Next step payment. They each entered their card details. One by one, the laptops beeped. Mia's payment went through first. She quietly put her hands over her face, letting out a sound that was half sob, half laugh. Your turn, she said to Sophie. Sophie typed her numbers with shaking fingers. For a moment, nothing happened. Card declined. Her throat closed. "Oh, God," Sophie whispered. "No, no, no." Connor slid beside her. "Try again. You probably typed it wrong." She didn't. She tried anyway. Declined. Jade stood up. "Call the bank." "I can't." "You can." "No, I can't." Jade took her phone, hit speaker, and held it to Sophie's ear. "Hi," Sophie said, voice paper thin. "I need to authorize an international purchase." 2 eternal minutes later, the payment went through. Sophie burst into tears, this time from relief. Connor's went through. Dylan's went through. Jade punched the air when hers succeeded, then yelled something in Italian. That probably wasn't polite. Only Ethan was left. He entered his card number. Press confirm. Processing, processing, processing. The room held its breath. Approved. They didn't scream. They didn't cheer. They simply froze. 6 hearts suspended in the moment between before and after. Ethan leaned back in his chair, staring at the screen. "Well," he said, voice quiet, "we just bought a one-way ticket to Australia." Connor lifted his coffee in a mock toast to questionable decisions. Jade raised hers to chaos. Mia lifted hers, eyes wet, to choosing ourselves. Dylan added, to not dying. They all looked at Sophie. Her smile trembled, broken and brave. "To the horizon," she whispered. Ethan met her eyes. He didn't look away. "To whatever's waiting beyond it." They clinked their coffee cups together. No turning back. No plan. Just 6 names on a boarding pass and a future that had never felt so enormous. Chapter 7. Packing the past. Sophie had never noticed how loud her childhood bedroom was until she had to empty it. Not the noise. There was no noise, but the memories. They rattled in every drawer, every box, every folded note from high school tucked between books. She opened her closet and stared at the rows of sweaters and dresses, realizing how many versions of herself she had tried to be. Her mother stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "You don't have to rush," she said. Sophie folded a faded denim jacket and placed it in her suitcase. "I do." Her mother hesitated, then stepped inside the room. "You're really doing this?" Sophie kept her eyes on the suitcase. "I am." When she reached the bottom of a drawer, she found a Polaroid, her and the group during their first year at university, laughing in the rain. Sophie traced the blurred edges of the photo. "I thought I had more time," she whispered. Her mother didn't answer. She simply placed a hand on Sophie's back, just once, then walked out. Connor stood behind the bar for the last time. The place was empty. No noise, no late-night customers, no arguments over last call. He wiped the counter slower than necessary. Try and make the moment last. Beside him, the manager counted bills. "You sure you don't want to keep a shift or two, just in case you come back?" Connor shook his head. "I won't be back." He placed the bar key on the counter. The tiny metal sound felt like closing a chapter with a click. He took one last look at the shelves of bottles, at the scratched wooden surface covered in carved initials and spilled memories. Then he whispered, "Thanks for the bad days, too." He walked out without looking back. Jade had a packing list taped to her wall. Clothing, passport, money, Italian, coffee, more Italian coffee. Dylan lay on her floor, tossing a stress ball into the air. "You're insane," he said. "You're bringing ground coffee like it's essential medicine." "It is essential medicine. You know they have coffee in Australia, right?" "Not Italian coffee." He pointed at item number 6. "Why is hair straightener on the list 4 times? Jade didn't look up. Backup for the backup. And emotional support backup. Dylan sat on the edge of Emma's bed, holding an envelope. "For when you miss me," he said. Emma opened it. Inside was a stack of postcards, each one blank, except the first. "I'll write to you from every place I see. And when you're older, we go together." She threw her arms around him. "Don't forget me." He squeezed her tighter. "Impossible." Mia walked through Manchester like she was collecting ghosts. Her camera clicked constantly. Street corners, Bus stops, graffiti, the worn stone steps near the library where she had cried after her first failed exam. She captured it all, trying to trap the city in pixels. At the bridge by the river, she paused. Connor found her there. "Stealing memories?" he asked. "Borrowing them." He leaned on the railing beside her. "Nervous?" "Yes." "Me too." She lowered her camera and looked at the water. "What if I'm not brave enough once we get there?" Connor didn't hesitate. "Then I'll be brave for you until you can be." Ethan drove without thinking. The landscape blurred, brick houses, traffic lights, rain-streaked windows. He stopped in front of an old football field at the edge of town. Grass uncut, gates rusted. He had played here as a kid. He walked to the bleachers and sat, the cold metal seeping through his jacket. For years, he had believed his father's silence was his fault. Like success was the only language worth speaking. The field was empty, but Ethan still spoke aloud. "I'm leaving." Nobody answered. He stood, exhaled, and finally, felt something uncurl inside his chest. Freedom. That night, suitcases lined Connor's living room again. But this time, they weren't portals to possibility. They were proof. Proof that leaving wasn't fantasy. Proof that staying would have been the easier mistake. Jade zipped her bag. No turning back. Mia set down her camera. "We're really doing this." Connor sat on the floor between the bags. "What if we've made the dumbest decision of our lives?" Sophie sat beside him. "Then at least it's ours." Dylan raised a hand. "Please, no group hug." Ethan didn't say anything. He looked at the 6 suitcases, 6 futures, 6 leaps of faith, and for the first time, he wasn't afraid. Chapter 8. The airport goodbye. Manchester Airport at dawn looked like a half-awake world. Fluorescent lights flickering, rolling suitcases clicking over tile, announcements echoing through cavernous halls. They arrived as 6, but they did not arrive alone. Parents, siblings, awkward relatives, and one very nervous dog, Dylan's neighbor's fault, followed them like a parade of emotions that had nowhere to hide. Jade was the first to speak. "Well," she exhaled, adjusting the strap of her carry-on, "this is dramatically depressing." Sophie forced a smile. "We knew it would be." Connor checked the departure board for the 5th time. Gate opens in 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Their last 20 minutes here. "Sophie." Her mother stood stiffly beside her, hands clasped too tight. "You could still stay," she whispered. Sophie shook her head. "If I stay, I'll never learn who I might be." Her mother's eyes filled, but this time she didn't argue. Instead, she opened her purse and handed Sophie a tiny silver compass. "So you don't forget where home is." Sophie hugged her, tight, grateful, trembling. "Mom, I'm not running away." Her mother pressed her forehead to hers. "I know. You're running towards something." Connor's parents looked like they stepped out of a business magazine even this early. Perfect posture, perfect coats, perfect disappointment. His mother smoothed his collar. "You could have been anything." "I still can," he said softly. His father reached into his jacket and pressed something into Connor's palm. A small card, creased, wore around the edges. Connor flipped it over. It was a loyalty card from the pub where he used to work. 1 punch left. Free drink. Connor choked out a laugh. "You kept this." His father cleared his throat. "Your first job. Your first step. Don't erase the steps that built you." Connor hugged him, unexpected and desperate. Jade's mother paced in circles, muttering in Italian, alternating between insult and prayer. "E una follia, Jade. Unassertita. Il mondo non è un film. Mamma, una ragazza c'è partenza un piano e." "Mama." Jade grabbed her mother's hands. "I need to do something that scares me." Her mother's eyes softened for the first time. "Sempre corri verso le cose che ti spaventano." "Maybe I get that from you." A long beat. Then, suddenly, her mother pulled her into a crushing embrace. "Mandami un messaggio quando atterri o io muoio." Dylan. Emma clung to his waist like a koala. "You'll forget about me," she sniffed. Dylan kneeled in front of her. "I'll forget how to breathe before I forget about you." He took a small necklace from his pocket, a tiny metal star. When you wear this, it means we're under the same sky. Emma cried harder. Dylan did too. MIA. Mia stood a little apart from everyone else, silently taking pictures. Blurry, imperfect, unposed. Her father approached. You're really going alone on the other side of the planet? I'm not alone, she said. I'm with them. He nodded once, awkward but sincere. Make sure someone takes pictures of you too. Mia smiled. Maybe for once I will. Ethan and his father faced each other like strangers. You've made your choice, his father said. Yes. You're wasting time. No, Ethan replied, steady. For the first time, I'm using it. His father exhaled, slow, unreadable. Ethan turned to leave. Just as he stepped away, his father spoke. Come back better. It wasn't approval, but it wasn't silence. Ethan nodded. I will. Final boarding call for Flight 231 to Sydney. Connecting to Darwin. Connor inhaled sharply. That's us. Sophie wiped her eyes. Jade grabbed her suitcase handle like a lifeline. Mia took the last airport photo. The 6 of them, backs facing the camera, walking toward security. No one spoke during the line. When they reached the point where families couldn't follow, they turned for a final wave. Sophie pressed a silver compass in her hand. Jade mouthed Ti amo to her mother. Dylan lifted Emma's star necklace. Mia raised her camera in silent promise. Connor tucked the loyalty card into his wallet. Ethan whispered, beyond the red horizon. They crossed through security, and just like that, they were gone. Chapter 9. The First Horizon. The cabin lights dimmed to a soft blue glow, simulating a night that their bodies refused to understand. Time zones blurred. Hours were swallowed by engine noise, recycled air, and the strange intimacy of sitting shoulder to shoulder with strangers for half a world of distance. Ethan had the window seat. Not by choice. Mia had shoved him into it, declaring, You're the one who takes dramatic photos, you get the window. Now, he stared at a sheet of nothingness. Black sky, black ocean. Between them, the endless hum of altitude. 4 hours after takeoff. Jade kicked off her shoes and curled her legs onto the seat. Why is airplane food always a crime? She whispered. Connor smirked. You ordered pasta on a plane. That's basically asking for trauma. It was labeled homemade tomato sauce. Nothing homemade comes sealed in plastic. From 3 seats behind, Dylan lifted his eye mask just enough to mutter, If you two don't shut up, I'm throwing myself out of the emergency exit. Mia laughed softly, scrolling through the in-flight map. Siete dei bambini, she murmured affectionately. Children. They were. Children pretending to be adults. 7 hours after takeoff. Somewhere over the Indian Ocean. Sophie was awake. She couldn't sleep. Not with her brain buzzing and her chest tight with an ache she didn't have a name for. Next to her, Connor was wide awake too, headphones around his neck, watching a silent documentary about coral reefs. You okay? He asked quietly. No. She didn't sugarcoat it. She held a small object in her hand, a keychain shaped like a compass, the one her mom had slipped into her suitcase without saying a word. Everyone keeps saying this is a star or something. Her voice trembled. But all I can think about is everything we're leaving. Connor turned the compass in her palm gently. You don't have to know where you're going, he murmured. Just keep moving. Sophie breathed out, a shaky, grateful laugh. Since when are you the wise one? Since I ran out of jokes. He glanced toward Jade. She used them all. 10 hours after takeoff. Dylan couldn't sleep. Emma had drawn him a picture before he left. Stick figures of the 2 of them holding ice cream, with "Don't forget me" in huge capital letters. He traced the edge of the drawing with his thumb. Ethan leaned over the aisle. You okay? Dylan shrugged. I don't know who I am without everything I had there. You'll find out. Ethan said it with the conviction Dylan wished he felt. How? Ethan turned toward the window. By leaving. 13 hours after takeoff. Turbulence. The plane shook. Not violently, but enough that every loose object rattled. Jade grabbed Ethan's arm on pure reflex. I hate flying. I hate flying. I hate flying. You said that already. Well, I still hate it. The seatbelt sign blinked on. A baby started crying. The entire cabin felt like one long-held breath. Mia reached across the aisle and squeezed Jade's hand. You're fine. We're fine. Connor raised an eyebrow. Statistically, turbulence never causes. Jade slapped a hand over his mouth. Connor, if you finish that sentence, I'll smother you with a complimentary pillow. The turbulence eased. Silence settled again, deep and fragile. Sign appears on the overhead screen estimated arrival in Darwin. 1 hour, 12 minutes. The cabin lights brightened very gradually. The windows glowed with a faint tint of color. Ethan blinked, leaned forward, and pressed his forehead to the glass. Guys, he whispered, you need to see this. One by one, they crowded around the small oval window, shoulders pressing together, knees awkwardly wedged between seats. Outside, the blackness cracked open. A line of red light cut the horizon, soft at first, then violent, amber, scarlet, burning gold. The sky was bleeding into dawn. Sophie covered her mouth, breath stolen. Connor whispered, It looks unreal. Mia lifted her phone slowly, not to take a picture, but to place a hand against the glass. Dylan's eyes reflected the color back like two small suns. I've never seen anything like it. Jade swallowed. It feels like it's waiting for us. Ethan didn't speak, because in that exact moment he knew this wasn't just a sunrise. It was a beginning, the first red horizon. And none of them knew that it would not be the last. They were flying toward a destiny that would break them, bind them, and shape them into something the world had not seen in centuries. But for now, they just watched the light. Chapter 10. Welcome to the heat. The moment the airplane door opened, the heat slapped them in the face. Not a gentle warmth, not a summer in Europe kind of heat. This was a wall, wet, dense, suffocating. Jade blinked. Oh my God. We flew into a sauna. Connor adjusted his backpack straps. Technically, it's a tropical save. Connor, Jade warned, if you turn into Wikipedia right now, I swear. He shut his mouth. They walked down the mobile staircase, their shoes hitting the asphalt of Darwin International Airport for the first time. Cicadas shrieked. The air smelled like salt and eucalyptus, and something wild they couldn't name. Mia turned slowly on her heels, eyes wide. Guys, we are literally on the other side of the world. Dylan wiped sweat from his forehead. I am literally melting. Sophie laughed nervously, already digging into her backpack to find a hair tie. Her hair stuck to her neck like glue. Ethan didn't speak. He kept staring at the horizon, flat, endless, shimmering, like something was calling. Baggage claim, 40 minutes later. Chaos. Backpackers everywhere. Boards with stickers. Boots still covered in desert dust. A German guy was literally asleep on his suitcase. Their luggage dropped onto the conveyor belt one by one. Except Dylan's. He said, staring at the loop for the fourth time, my backpack is not here. Jade's eyes widened. Please tell me your passport is on you and not inside the backpack. Dylan froze. Oh, my God. Sophie buried her face in her hands. Dylan. A staff member reassured them that the backpack would arrive on the next flight from Singapore. Maybe, possibly, hopefully. This is fine, Dylan mumbled, defeated. I always wanted to start a new life with nothing. Outside, taxi area. The heat was worse. Their clothes clung to their bodies. A taxi driver waved at them. Where to? Jade stepped forward confidently. The cheapest hostel near the city center. He shrugged. Sure, $35. Connor checked his phone. The app says it should cost $22. The driver's eyes narrowed. You want the app price or a ride? Jade shot Connor a look that said, don't make me curse in Italian on day one. We'll take the ride. She snapped, climbing in. The hostel. If chaos had a physical form, this was it. Graffiti on the walls, backpacks stacked everywhere, doors slamming, music blasting from somewhere. No one could tell where. Their room had 6 beds, 2 functioning fans, one suspicious stain on the ceiling that looked like Australia. Mia set her phone down on the metal bunk bed. This is charming, she offered. No, Jade said. This is a crime scene. Ethan threw himself backward onto the mattress and immediately regretted it. It feels like sleeping on a tortilla chip. Connor tried to open the window. It didn't budge. This room wasn't built. It was punished into existence. Sophie took a slow breath and smiled anyway. Guys, we're here. We actually did it. Later that night, hostel roof terrace. String lights. Plastic chairs. The distant sound of someone playing guitar badly. The air was still hot, but the city finally breathed. They shared a single cold beer. 6 sips. 1 each. They didn't toast. They didn't need to. Ethan stared up at the southern sky. The stars were different here, sharper as if closer. Do you feel that? He asked. Connor leaned back. Feel what? Ethan exhaled slowly, unable to explain, like something's about to begin. Sophie rested her chin on her knees. It already has. A warm wind swept across the rooftop, rustling Ethan's shirt, lifting Mia's hair, carrying a smell of red earth, distant, ancient. The outback was calling, and soon they would answer. Chapter 11. First steps into the outback. Darwin was already awake when they left. The humidity clung to them like a second skin as they stood at the pickup point with their backpacks stacked on the sidewalk. A faded minibus rattled toward them, coughing diesel exhaust, the paint peeling in long strips like sunburned skin. On the side, in enormous faded letters, someone had spray painted, Red Horizon Shuttle Backpacker Route. Jade squinted. That doesn't sound ominous at all. Connor shrugged, throwing his pack into the luggage compartment. It's a shuttle. How bad can it be? The bus door wheezed open. Inside were backpacks, too many flip-flops, and 9 strangers who smelled like sunscreen and adventure. The driver, a wiry man with a sun-bleached beard and a hat that had clearly lived through wars, chewed gum without enthusiasm. You kids going south, he muttered. To wherever the farms are, Mia answered. He grunted. Everyone's going south. Outback's cheap. Work seasonal. Survival optional. Dylan blinked. Excuse me, optional? The driver smacked the door shut. 4 hours later, the road disappears. The city had vanished behind them. No buildings, no houses, only red earth, stretching forever. Termite mounds appeared like statues, taller than any of them, rust-colored spires rising from the desert like the ruins of a forgotten civilization. Mia pressed her face to the window. They looked like cathedrals. They're nests, Connor corrected. They're art, she said without looking away. Jade slid on her sunglasses and sighed. I already miss air conditioning. Sophie sipped warm water from her bottle and checked a map on her phone, even though there was no signal. We're officially in the middle of nowhere. Dylan leaned back, smiling. Good. Maybe nowhere is where we find something. Ethan didn't say anything. He stared at the horizon again, the same way he had on the plane, as if something were calling him. Roadhouse. Only gas station for 300 kilometers. The minibus pulled up in front of a lone building surrounded by emptiness. A hand-painted sign read, Kangaroo Burgers, Wi-Fi sometimes. Inside, travelers ate greasy food under the flickering hum of old ceiling fans. Ethan went to buy water. When he returned, he noticed him. An older Aboriginal man sat at a corner table, alone, his skin like wrinkled copper, eyes deep and steady. His hair was long and silver, tied loosely at the base of his neck. He wasn't watching the room. He was watching Ethan. Ethan slowed his steps, unsure why the air suddenly felt thicker. The man raised 2 fingers in greeting. Not a wave, a recognition. Ethan blinked, confused. He had never seen this man in his life. Jade nudged Ethan's arm. Hey, you okay? You look like you just saw a ghost. Before Ethan could answer, the man spoke. His voice was low, like wind moving through rock. Some people travel to escape, he said. Ethan froze. The man held his gaze. Some travel because they are called. Ethan swallowed. How do you know that? The man smiled, not kindly, not ominously, simply knowingly. You'll understand soon, wandering one. And then he stood and walked away. No backpack, no vehicle, just walked into the blinding heat outside. Ethan turned to the others. Connor frowned. Who was that? I don't know. But Ethan knew one thing. He felt seen. Back on the minibus, sunset, the asphalt ended. The driver turned onto a dirt road, red dust exploding behind the tires. Hold on, he yelled. The bus lurched, and Jade screamed, half terror, half laughter. Sophie gripped the seat in front of her. We're driving into nothing. Connor checked the map again. There's a farm somewhere past this road. Hostel said backpackers start working here for a few weeks. Dylan raised an eyebrow. Somewhere, the sky turned from gold to red, a deeper red than the one from the plane. The horizon burned. Ethan couldn't look away. There it is again, he whispered. What? Mia asked. The color. He didn't say the calling. The bus jolted, skidding on loose sand. The outback swallowed them whole. Tomorrow, they would search for work. Tonight, they entered the desert. And somewhere miles ahead, someone was waiting for them. Chapter 12. The Farm. The minibus coughed to a stop in front of a faded wooden sign stuck crookedly into the ground. Workers needed. Cash pay. Backpackers welcome. Jade read it twice. Backpackers welcome, she repeated. Sounds like the beginning of a horror movie. The driver tossed their backpacks onto the dirt. End of the line, he said. Then he drove off in a cloud of red dust, leaving them alone with the heat and the flies. Connor shielded his eyes. Beyond the sign stretched fields, acres and acres of low-green plants. Scattered across the property were metal containers turned into dorms. A tractor approached, rattling and coughing. The man driving it didn't slow down. He had a cigarette hanging from his lips and a permanent layer of dust on his skin. He stopped just long enough to spit into the dirt. You the new workers? He asked without looking at them. Yes, Sophie answered, stepping forward politely. He finally glanced at the group. 6 young faces. 6 backpacks. 6 people who clearly had no idea what they were doing. He laughed. One sharp exhale through his nose. I'm Tony. I don't care where you're from. I care that you don't quit after 2 days. Jade rolled her eyes. Quietly. Ethan noticed anyway. Tony pointed toward an open shed. Drop your bags. Orientation in 5. He drove off again. Dorms. 10 minutes later. The container smelled of sweat, socks, and despair. 2 triple bunk beds. Peeling paint. A fan that sounded like a dying bird. Jade stared at it, horrified. No way. I refuse. You refuse a minibus too, Dylan reminded her. And yet, here you are. She kicked her backpack under the bed. Hard. Ethan placed his bag down and paused. On the metal frame of the bunk was a carving, a simple one, a circle divided by a horizontal line. He frowned. He had seen it before. Orientation or something like it. Tony gave them instructions while walking. No stopping, no sugarcoating. You start at sunrise, he barked. You finish when I say we're done. Sophie tried to write things down on a tiny notepad. Do we clock in? Is there paperwork? Or... Tony pointed to a clipboard nailed to a post. Sign your name and your passport number. Don't lose your passport. If you do, I don't drive you anywhere. Dylan whispered to Mia. He's joking, right? Mia whispered back. He doesn't seem like someone who jokes. They reached the field. Rows of zucchini plants, low and thorny. You picked these, Tony said. Jade stared. We traveled across the planet to pick zucchini? Tony shrugged. People gotta eat. Day 1 reality hits. Sunrise. Pink sky. Cool breeze. Hope. By 9 a.m. Sun burning, backs aching, clothes soaked. Regret. By noon. Silence. No one had energy left to talk. Sophie's hair was plastered to her neck. Connor had dirt smeared across his cheek. Mia was taking pictures, not of the scenery, but of them, to remember the struggle. Jade had declared, I'm quitting 3 times. Dylan wiped sweat from his eyes and grinned weakly. Guys, I have discovered a new muscle. It's called pain. Ethan worked quietly, focused. Pick, twist, drop, pick, twist, drop, rhythm. He didn't know why he felt calm here. He had hated routines all his life, and yet The outback was beginning to feel like breathing. That's when he noticed it. Half buried in the dirt, near the end of the field, was a small wooden post. Weathered, cracked. On it was carved the same symbol he'd seen. On the bunk, the circle, the line. Ethan touched it. A flash, not a memory, of something like memory. Dry wind, a distant fire. Voices chanting a language he didn't recognize. He jerked his hand back, heart racing. Someone else had been here. Someone who knew the symbol. Evening communal shed. Every night, backpackers from all over the world gathered around a long wooden table. A German girl taught Jade how to say fuck zucchini in 3 languages. A French couple traded beer for sunscreen. Someone played guitar badly. Someone else danced worse. Mia filmed everything. Proof we lived, she said. Ethan sat quietly, eyes on the dark outside the shed. The same darkness that held the land and whatever else was in it. Connor nudged him. You good? Ethan took a breath. Do you ever feel like we're supposed to be here? Connor laughed. No, but I feel like we're not supposed to be anywhere else right now. Ethan nodded slowly. Maybe that was enough. The outback wasn't welcoming. It wasn't kind, but it was beginning to pull them in. And far beyond the fields and the dust, a presence waited, watching. Chapter 13. Routine Cracks and Signs. The second week on the farm felt longer than the whole flight from Europe. Every day began the same. Not metaphorically. Exactly. 4:45 a.m. alarm. 5:10 a.m. zucchini field. 5:12 a.m. regret all life decisions. The sun wasn't up yet, but the heat already pressed on their skin like a warning. Jade yawned so wide her jaw cracked. Why does morning exist? Morning should be illegal. Connor stretched his back with a groan. If you say that every day, it doesn't get funnier. It wasn't supposed to be funny, Jade snapped. It's a cry for help. Day 11, the cracks. Tony, the supervisor, walked between the rows with his clipboard. You're too slow, he barked. Zucchini wait for no one. Connor clenched his jaw. We're going as fast as... Tony turned, smirking. You talking back? Connor swore under his breath and returned to picking. Sophie tugged at her gloves. Her hands shook. Blisters. Exhaustion. Something deeper she didn't want to name. I thought traveling would make me feel free, she said quietly, not anyone specific. Why do I feel trapped? No one answered. Not because they didn't care. Because they were too tired to feel anything. Day 14, the injury. Dylan swung the crate too fast. A zucchini plant lashed his arm, its thorny stem cutting deep across his wrist. Shit, he stumbled back. Blood. Mia rushed toward him. Sit down. Sophie grabbed the first aid kit, hands fumbling. Ethan held Dylan's arm steady while Connor wrapped the bandage. Jade stood perfectly still. And for once, she didn't have a single joke. Tony glanced over. That'll heal. Keep working. Mia snapped. He's bleeding. Tony shrugged. This isn't a resort. Something in Ethan snapped, but he swallowed it down. All he said was, we need water. Tony flicked his cigarette onto the dirt. Then drink faster and complain less. That night, Dylan tried to laugh it off. It's fine, he said, flexing his wrapped wrist. Now I look rugged, like a desert warrior. Ethan didn't laugh. He couldn't stop staring toward the dark outline of the field, like someone was standing there, watching. Day 17, Connor and Jade explode. The heat was brutal, worse than usual. Jade's hair was stuck to her forehead. Her patience evaporated. Connor counted the crates aloud. 123, 124. Stop counting. Jade snapped. You're making me feel slow. You're literally annoying. Everyone froze. Mia whispered to Sophie. We're officially feral. Connor dropped his gloves. Fine. Next time I'll just stop trying. Jade's face flickered. Anger, then guilt, then exhaustion. She muttered, sorry. So, quietly the wind nearly stole it. Night 19, the symbol again. Ethan couldn't sleep. He walked outside the container. The night was still, insects buzzing in the dry heat. On the side of a water tank near the field, He saw it, the symbol again, a circle, a horizontal line. But this time, something new was carved beneath it. Follow the light. Ethan touched the symbol. A rush of wind hit his face, sudden and unnatural. And then, far across the field, beyond the dark rows of zucchini plants, a figure, still, watching, the same silver hair, the same deep, steady gaze, the old Aboriginal man. Ethan blinked once. The figure vanished, like heat shimmer, like he had never been there at all. Day 21, the confession. They sat outside the container, legs stretched out on the dirt. No one spoke. Finally, Sophie broke. I don't want to be here anymore. The words hung heavy in the air. Dylan nodded slowly. I thought traveling would fix me. Jade whispered, I thought it would distract me. Mia stared at her camera. I keep taking pictures, hoping one will feel real. Connor looked toward Ethan. We said we'd stay at least 3 weeks. Ethan didn't answer immediately. The wind brushed past them, the same warm wind from the desert. He exhaled, voice steady. Maybe we weren't meant to stay. They all turned toward him. Maybe, he said, eyes on the horizon. We were meant to go further. No one said it aloud, but everyone knew. The farm was no longer the destination. It was the last barrier before the unknown, and something or someone was waiting for them beyond the fields. Chapter 14. Breaking Point. The storm arrived without warning. One moment the sky was clear. The next, dark clouds swallowed the sun, and a wind so violent it bent the plants flat against the ground swept across the fields. Tony shouted from the tractor, waving his arms. Get inside. Now! They ran toward the containers, slipping in the mud, dirt turning instantly to thick clay. Rain hammered down in sheets, drumming against a metal roof like fists. Inside, the air smelled of damp earth and sweat. Connor tried to shut the door against the wind, but the storm shoved back. Mia pushed beside him. Come on. The door slammed shut, and suddenly there was silence. Not peaceful silence. Heavy silence. The kind that traps words that have been waiting too long. Inside the container, thunder rolled. Sophie sat on her bunk, hugging her knees. Her breathing was shallow. Quick. We're stuck here, she whispered. It's just a storm, Connor said. No, her voice cracked. It's not just a storm. No one responded, because they knew she wasn't talking about the weather. Jade paced the narrow aisle between the bunks, restless energy radiating off her. I hate this, she snapped. I hate feeling like I don't matter. Dylan sat on the floor, back against the metal wall, clutching his bandaged wrist. At least you feel something, he muttered. I just feel numb. Another flash of lightning lit up the container. Mia lowered her camera. For once, she didn't want to capture anything. You know what scares me? She said quietly. I take pictures all day, but none of them feel real. It's like I'm trying to prove my life is worth something. Sophie's voice broke. I told my mom this trip would change me, that I'd come back stronger. Tears spilled, but I feel smaller. Connor stood there, helpless, hands balled into fists. He was always the strong one, the steady one, but even he had cracks now. We came here looking for answers, he said. Instead, we got blisters and zucchini. Jade snorted. Zucchini is the devil's vegetable. No one laughed. The breaking point. Thunder shook the container, so violently the metal walls rattled. Ethan stood. For hours, he had been silent, leaning against the door, watching the rain. He finally spoke. We didn't fly to the other side of the world to suffer in a box. All eyes turned to him. Ethan stepped into the center of the room, rainwater dripping from his hair. His voice was low but steady. We weren't called here to pick vegetables. Sophie wiped her cheeks. Then what are we doing here? Ethan held her gaze. We're wasting time. No one had the energy to disagree. Not anymore. He walked to the window and shoved it open. Rain blew in, cool against the heat of their frustration. We leave, he said. Jade blinked. Leave as in quit? Yeah. Tomorrow? Dylan asked. Ethan shook his head. No. Tonight. Lightning flashed, illuminating his face. We walk away. Right now. For a moment, the only sound was a storm. Then Connor stood. I'm in. Jade crossed her arms. Obviously I'm in. Mia gave a small, nervous smile. I didn't come here to be mediocre. Dylan raised his bandaged hand. I refuse to let Zucchini be my legacy. All eyes turned to Sophie. Her voice was barely a whisper. I'm scared. Ethan stepped closer. Me too. A beat. Then Sophie nodded. Okay, I'm in. Packing in the dark. They moved fast. Backpacks. Water bottles. Sneakers wet from the storm. They zipped their bags in silence, adrenaline sparking through exhaustion. As Ethan slung his backpack onto his shoulder, he glanced out the window and froze. There, near the fence at the edge of the field, stood the old Aboriginal man, unmoving, not blurred by distance or rain. Clear, solid, waiting. Ethan couldn't breathe. He stepped outside into the storm. Rain soaked him instantly. The others followed, confused. Ethan, Sophie called. Where are you? He pointed. The man stood perfectly still, silver hair plastered to his shoulders, rain flowing down his face like river water. Lightning illuminated him. Mia gasped. He's real. The man raised his hand, not waving, summoning. Ethan took one step toward him. Jade grabbed Ethan's arm. Where are we going? Ethan's eyes didn't leave the man. Forward. The storm swallowed their footprints as they walked away, away from the farm, away from everything known, toward the red dirt, toward the unknown, toward destiny. Chapter 15. The Crossing. They left the farm before dawn, moving like ghosts under a sky still bruised from the storm. Their boots sank into the red earth in slow, deliberate steps. For a few hours they walked in companionable silence, the kind of quiet that didn't need words because every breath already said the same thing. We left. Jade kept complaining about the heat more loudly than necessary. Connor hummed under his breath, counting paces. Dylan carried the extra water bottles like they were trophies. Sophie walked in the middle, camera slung at her side, though she wasn't taking pictures. She simply wanted the comfort of holding something familiar. Ethan drifted at the back, hands jammed in pockets, eyes scanning the horizon as if trying to read a language written in dust. Mia walked beside him, lips moving as she scrolled to a photo she'd just taken. A termite mound that looked like a cathedral, a curve in the road with a land open like a wound, a rusted sign pointing nowhere. She laughed at something on the screen. You should stop hoarding memories. Jade said, You're going to have gray hair by the time you catalog all this. Mia winked. I'm putting life in a file. Don't take away my filing cabinet. The trail turned away from the last beaten road and into narrower tracks. Tracks became two ruts. The ruts became a faint ribbon of dust that disappeared into a wash of scrub. The world closed in, and the distant hum of civilization faded like an old radio being turned off. Check the water, Sophie said. We should ration. They did. Small sips stretched like coins. Hours passed in heat-drowned minutes. The sun hunched higher, and their shadows grew thin slashes beneath them. The scrub offered little shade. When it did, the shade smelled sharp and dusty. Conversation grew sparse. Only shards of jokes, short instructions, and the soft pan of breath. At midday, they found a small outcrop of rocks, a pocket of shade promising respite. Stones lay warm but not blistering. A lone ghost gum tree leaned over them, its pale bark surprise in the red landscape. They dropped their packs in a tangled pile and collapsed around the rocks. Mia took off her boots, rubbing the grit from her toes with a small, practiced motion. Connor pulled a crinkled map from his pocket and squinted at it, trying to orient the vague lines with the wide-open country around them. According to this, we are kind of, he began, then stopped. We are gloriously, terrifyingly in the middle of nowhere. And you love say it like that, Jade said. They laughed, but the sound was brittle. Even so, it held them for a moment. Mia wandered a little from the group, drawn by a line of small, pale stones that made a crude trail between two low bushes. She bent to photograph the pattern, an instinct more than a decision, the shutter clicking quietly in the hush. A glint of movement flickered in the dirt near her ankle. A thin, brown body slid between the rocks and the scrub. Mia's fingers froze on the camera. She had been close enough that the motion should have been obvious. It was only when she felt a quick, hot pinch at her ankle that she realized the motion had not been a trick of light. "Shit!" she said, more a reflex than cry. The space around them exploded. Jade's head whipped toward Mia. "What?" Mia looked down. A dark, thick line of venomous brown coiled, head raised in a ready strike. Fangs bare near the spot where she'd been standing. For the blink of an instant, everything slowed. The flapping of a bird's wings, the creak of a branch, the sound of someone, Dylan, dropping his water bottle and swearing. "Get away!" Connor shouted, voice raw. He kicked at the snake, but it struck again, glancing off his boot and flashing out of reach. It didn't want to be cornered. It wanted escape. Mia stumbled back, her hand going to the bitten ankle. The skin around the wound swelled almost at once, purple blotches blooming like bruises painted in real time. "It's a brown snake," Ethan said, his voice a flat line. He had seen the shape once in a nature doc that darted through his memory like a shard of glass. "They're fast. Potentially hemotoxic. We need to get to a hospital." "No signal," Jade said. Her breath came short. "I tried. Nothing." Panic bled at the edges of the group. For the first time since leaving Manchester, the old certainties were useless. No easy directions, no instant help, no GPS voice to soothe them. "Don't move her," Mia said through gritted teeth, then laughed, a brittle sound of disbelief. "Of course I said that." Dylan crouched next to her, hands shaking. He found a clean strip of cloth from his shirt and tied it loosely above the bite, an inelegant, improvised tourniquet. This is what they do in movies, right? "Tighten, wait, get to help." "Not too tight," Sophie cried. "You'll cut off the blood flow entirely." Ethan was already methodical, calm and careful as if in a laboratory. He had read something about pressure immobilization bands. He took the strip, loosened a fraction, and wrapped the ankle and lower leg with broader strokes of fabric, then bound the leg to a straight stick they found nearby to immobilize it. "We can't carry her far like this," Connor said. "We need shade. We need to slow the spread." Mia's breathing hitched. Sweat purled on her forehead. Her pupils were wide as if the world had tilted. "Does anyone have anything with anti-venom?" Jade asked, voice thin with panic and a desperate hope to laugh at her own question. "No," Connor said. "No hospitals anywhere close." They argued fast and ugly for a moment. Do they return to farm and risk losing time? Do they head toward the nearest outpost on the map? Do they try to flag down a passing vehicle? Each option had razor teeth. Each decision could be fatal. "We need to move," Ethan said finally, slowly, controlled. "No more panic." "Slowly where?" Dylan asked. He sounded close to collapse. Ethan pointed in the vague direction of the road they had left. "Back the way we came. It's our best chance to find transport. If we can't, we have to make a signal and stay with her." They formed a plan that felt insufficient and brittle. 2 people would carry Mia. 2 would scout ahead. 1 would stay at the elevation line with water and shade. Connor and Dylan volunteered to lift her first. Jade and Sophie argued to take the scouts. Ethan stayed to stabilize the splint and monitor Mia's pulse like a metronome. Mia's eyes met Ethan's. There was humor there despite the fear, some small, stubborn spark. "Tell them to stop photographing my shoes," she whispered, a thin joke that cracked the group's tightness for a breath. "Promise," Sophie said, and meant it. They hoisted Mia between Connor and Dylan, awkward like teenagers playing at a duty they had never rehearsed. Her weight was heavier than they expected. Solidarity turned to gravity. They moved with slow, staggered rhythm, boots sinking into the warm dirt. Minutes turned into an hour that felt like a feverish day. Shadows slid, heat rolled up in waves, and the only sound was the labored thump of Mia's breaths and the ground underfoot. At times they stopped so she could sip the tiniest amount of water. Each time her skin felt hotter, her words fewer. "Keep talking to her," Ethan urged. "Don't let her sleep too deeply." They stuck to a single, small mantra, short sentences about nothing important. The stupid name of a Manchester pub, the worst exam they'd ever had, Jade's impossible coffee rituals. It was ridiculous and necessary. By late afternoon, the road they had lost sight of finally emerged as a thin line of dust in the distance. They staggered toward it with the last of their strength, lungs burning. The sight of the track was a raw, holy thing. They laid Mia gently beneath the thread of roadside shade and began flagging. Cars passed slowly, indifferent. One trucker's cab looked straight at them and then drove on. Each rejection landed as a small cut. No signal. Connor said again, voice fraying. Nothing is answering. The sun began to lower, redder than before, like an ember sliding into the earth. The desert felt enormous in its indifference. When hope had almost run entirely dry, a rusted pickup clattered over the horizon, dust plume behind it. For a wild breath, everyone thought it might be salvation, until the truck slowed and a dark figure leaned out to stare. "Mate," the driver called in an accent thick with the country. "What the hell are you lot doing here?" Connor waved his arms frantically. The truck pulled closer. A woman climbed down from the passenger seat and moved toward them with a purposeful stride. Her skin was the deep, weathered brown of people who'd lived with the land their whole lives. Her face was stern but steady. "Laura," she said when she stopped. She looked at Mia with an appraisal that didn't blink. "You need a hand." The group inhaled as if they had found water. Lara's voice was calm, businesslike. She crouched, checked Mia's eyes, squeezed the bite area, felt the swelling. "Pressure's right. Bandages okay. You got anti-venom wear?" "No, didn't think so." She barked at the driver, who produced a battered tin of cold water and a thick blanket. "Get her in the back. We'll move slow. You lot, where you headed?" Connor tried to explain in bursts. "We left the farm. We're not sure. She was bitten. We were walking." Laura held up a hand. "Go. Help her. Get in." They loaded Mia into the back of the pickup, as if loading a fragile crate. The vehicle's bed smelled like old rope and sun-baked leather. As they settled into the cab, Laura looked at Ethan, eyes narrowing just a little, an expression like recognition that felt too deep for simple courtesy. "You're not the first to wander out here," she said, "and the desert doesn't take kindly to careless feet." Ethan found himself saying, without quite planning the words, "We were called." Lara's look sharpened. For a second the world felt like an animal washing its face. Slow, deliberate, revealing. "Called, huh?" she said. Then softer, almost to herself, "Maybe some of you were." The pickup rumbled forward, leaving their footprint behind like small, temporary scars on a vast, patient earth. As the dust swallowed the track beneath them, the six watched over Mia's bandaged leg and listened to the low thrum of the engine. The desert rolled by in copper waves. The sky burned low and wide. They had left the farm, stumbled into crisis, and found help in a woman who seemed to belong to the land itself. They finally learned that in this place, survival depended on unexpected kindness and on noticing the signs that something larger was in motion. When the pickup turned deeper into the country, cutting farther from the road, Ethan watched Laura in the rearview mirror. Her jaw was a map of small roads, furrows that had stories in them. She kept glancing at him, as if weighing an old memory. He felt that same cautious thrill again, the sense that something had begun to move for real. And as the sun folded into horizon, red seemed into night, the shape of what was coming looked less like a threat and more like an invitation. Chapter 16. The Place That Breathes. They rode in silence. The pickup rattled along a barely visible dirt track, headlights carving thin tunnels of light through the bush. Dust streamed behind them like a comet tail. The farther they drove, the more the world withdrew, until the sky swallowed everything, a bowl of stars so dense it looked like spilled salt. No one spoke. Mia lay on a blanket in the truck bed, her breathing shallow but steadier. Ethan sat beside her, keeping a hand on her shoulder to reassure himself she was still warm. Sophie leaned against the cab window, staring at the passing darkness, as if expecting answers to emerge from it. The truck slowed. Ahead, the land opened into a clearing tucked between low hills and twisted trees. Firelight flickered in the distance, small flames in shallow metal bowls placed on the ground, creating a circle of warm, breathing light. A settlement, not a town, not even a village, just a presence. Tents made of cloth and metal poles. A few wooden structures. Shapes sitting by the fire, talking in soft voices. Laura cut the engine. We're home. Dylan swallowed. Home, like permanently? Or temporarily? Laura didn't turn. She just said, "Get her inside," and jumped out. They followed her toward a larger tent, the kind used for expeditions. Canvas stretched over curved supports, lit from within. The air smelled of smoke and eucalyptus, a scent that felt old and grounding. Inside, heat wrapped around them like a blanket. Low shelves lined the walls, filled with jars of herbs and tools carved from bone. In the center sat an old man cross-legged on a woven mat. His skin was deep brown, marked by sun and time. His eyes reflected the firelight, gold at the edges, dark in the center. He did not look surprised to see them. Laura bowed her head slightly. "Elder." He nodded once. The elder didn't ask who they were, didn't ask what happened, didn't even ask permission. He simply extended his hand toward Mia. "Bring her here." Connor and Dylan lifted her carefully, lowering her onto the mat. Mia tried to speak, but her voice was barely a whisper. "I'm fine. Really, She didn't finish. Her eyes fluttered. The elder placed his hand on her ankle, exactly over the bite. Jade held her breath. Sophie stepped closer. Ethan's pulse hammered at his ears. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a soft glow appeared beneath the elder's palm. Not bright, not artificial. Like someone had cupped a piece of sunrise. The light moved, traveling under the skin along her leg. It pulsed in slow waves, as though syncing with Mia's heartbeat. Sophie's mouth fell open. Jade whispered, "No way." Ethan froze, not in fear, but in recognition, like something inside him had known this moment was coming. The elder murmured words none of them understood. Ngura Yarnu, Yakakudakaru, Warlawanka. The glow brightened. Mia inhaled sharply, a gasp snapping through her body like a wire pulled tight. The swelling visibly receded. The purple bruising faded. Color returned to her cheeks. Connor took a step back. Dylan's eyes went wide. No one dared speak. When the light finally dimmed, the elder lifted his hand. The bite mark wasn't there anymore, not even a scar. He covered Mia gently with a blanket, then looked up at them, at all of them, with a gravity that silenced the world. "The land gave you warning," he said. His English was slow, deliberate. "You listened. That is good." Sophie found her voice first. How did you? He did not answer. Instead, he looked directly into Ethan's eyes, and whatever Ethan was about to ask died on his tongue. "You felt it," the elder said. Ethan blinked. "I what?" "You felt it before it happened. The danger." Connor turned toward him. "Did you?" Ethan swallowed hard, because it was true. He had sensed something, not fear, but pressure, a warning. "I thought it was just nerves." The elder smiled slightly, the way someone smiles when watching a child pick up a tool for the first time. "No," he said. "It was the land speaking." Jade exhaled shakily, trying to laugh. "So the desert talks now?" The elder didn't blink. The desert always talks. People simply stopped listening. Silence stretched, thick and alive. He stood, surprisingly steady for his age, and gestured to the entrance of the tent. "You stay here tonight. At dawn, we talk." Sophie's voice trembled. "Talk about what?" The elder paused. "The reason you are here." He walked out, leaving them alone with the warm air and the remaining glow of a miracle. For a minute, no one moved. Then Jade whispered, "We are absolutely not telling anyone about this." "Not tonight," Ethan said quietly. "Let's just breathe." Mia shifted under the blanket, eyes still closed but lips curved in a soft, serene smile, as if dreaming of somewhere safe. Outside, the fire crackled. The wind moved through the trees, and the land, vast and ancient, kept watch over them. None of them slept that night, not because they were afraid, but because, for the first time, they understood they were part of something much bigger than a backpacking trip, something that had been waiting for them. Chapter 17. The Land That Watches. Mia woke with the sunrise. For a moment she couldn't remember where she was. The canvas roof above her, the warm smell of smoke carried on the breeze. Then she flexed her ankle without thinking. No pain. She sat up sharply, pushing the blanket away. Jade, who had slept curled beside her, nearly rolled off the cot. "Mia, careful," Jade mumbled, rubbing her eyes. "I'm fine," Mia said. Then louder, unable to contain it, "I'm fine." Connor and Dylan looked up from where they had been half asleep against the tent wall. Sophie dropped the metal cup she'd been holding. Ethan froze mid-stretch. They all stared at Mia. She stood, put her full weight on her leg. Then she took a step, then another, and then she jumped. No one cheered. No one said a word. They all remembered the glow, the light, the impossibility. Only after several seconds did Dylan manage a whisper. "Well, that's medically illegal." Outside, the settlement was already alive. Fire crackled in metal bowls, and figures moved slowly and deliberately through the morning tasks. Sweeping, boiling water, tending animals. Laura appeared in the tent doorway. "The elder wants you," she said. "All of you." They followed her into the open air, still bleary from lack of sleep and overflowing thoughts. The elder stood near a low fire pit, carving something into a piece of soft wood. His hands moved with calm precision. He didn't look up. He didn't greet them. He simply said, "Sit." They lowered themselves onto the blankets, arranged in a half-circle around the flames. Mia sat in the middle cross-legged, grounding herself with a hand flat on the dirt, as if to prove she was really alive. The elder finally raised his gaze. "You saw what the land can do." Jade let out a nervous laugh. "Saw? No, that was like a Marvel origin story." The elder tilted his head. "Marvel? A movie?" Connor clarified. "No movies here," the elder said, not unkindly. "Only truth." He set aside the carved piece of wood, now revealed as a symbol, an intricate shape of curves and winding lines. "This place," he went on, "is older than stories, older than fear, older than your world, and the noise you call knowledge." He studied each of them with unnerving precision. "You think you came here by choice." A pause. "You did not." The six exchanged glances. Mia's smile faded. Ethan leaned forward, muscles tight. Sophie's voice was small. "Then why are we here?" The elder tapped the carved symbol. Its curves resembled the path of a river or a snake, a line that doubled back on itself. "There are currents under the skin of the earth," he said. "Lines of power, lines that speak." He pointed to Ethan. "You felt one." Ethan didn't answer, but everyone turned toward him. He had no explanation, just instinct, that strange sense of pressure in his chest before Mia was bitten. "You listened," the elder continued. "Most do not." Then he stood, motioned for them to rise, and led them deeper into the clearing. They walked past the tents to a place where the trees parted around a circular stone platform, rough, ancient, scarred by time. Symbols were carved into the rock, similar to the piece of wood from earlier. The elder gestured for them to stand in a loose circle. "No talking," he said. "No questions." He took a pouch from around his neck and sprinkled something fine, ash or dust, onto the center of the stone. It shimmered briefly, catching the sunlight. "Close your eyes." They did. The wind moved across their cheeks. Smoke curled around their ankles. The ground vibrated faintly underfoot. And then they began to feel. Not thoughts, not emotions. Sophie felt images. The fire, the desert, a color she had never seen before. Jade felt people. The emotional pulse of every heartbeat around her, sharp and unmistakable. Connor sensed direction, north-south, distance measured not in miles but in certainty. Dylan felt rhythm, the beat of something deep underground. Mia felt light, not warmth but clarity. And Ethan felt everything. The breath of the air, the movement of sand, the pulse of the land beneath them, like a sleeping thing stirring. His eyes flew open. The elder saw. "Powers do not appear," he said quietly. "They awaken." The sensation faded as quickly as it came, leaving the six with pounding hearts and unsteady breaths. "What happens now?" Sophie whispered. The elder walked toward Ethan, stopping just inches away. A long pause. Tonight, he said, the land will speak. Jade frowned. Speak how? He smiled, not reassuring, not comforting. By choosing, he turned and walked away, leaving them to stand on ancient stone, hearts racing with the knowledge that something inside them had shifted, something that could never be undone. Chapter 18. Night of fire and dust. The sky was already turning purple when Laura approached their tent again. You should eat something, she said, nodding toward a long, low table near the fire pit. You'll need strength for tonight. Strength for what wasn't specified, Jade muttered to Connor as they walked. Every time she says something cryptic, I lose a month of life expectancy. Food had been prepared by the community. Roasted vegetables, rice, smoky flatbread still warm from the coals. They sat together on woven mats, eating in tired silence. Mia kept staring at her ankle, touching it, flexing it, like she was afraid the miracle might vanish if she stopped acknowledging it. Do you think, she whispered to Ethan, it was really magic? It wasn't a trick, Ethan replied. His voice was quiet, certain. I felt something activate. Dylan wiped his mouth on his sleeve. Yeah, well, apparently I felt drums. Underground drums. Great. I'm the world's least useful superhero. You felt rhythm. The elder's voice said from behind them. Rhythm shapes movement. Even the land moves to rhythm. Dylan choked on his water. None of them had heard the elder approach. He looked at the group with an unreadable expression. When darkness rises, he said, truth shows its face. Jade glared at Ethan. I swear, if the night ends with human sacrifice. No sacrifice. The elder cut in calmly. Only recognition. He motioned for them to follow. They walked along a narrow path into the hills. Fireflies, or something like fireflies, blinked in the trees, their light more orange than yellow. The ground rose beneath them until they emerged onto a broad plateau of red stone. The space was enormous, circular, marked by large flat stones erected in a ring. A bonfire waited at the center, with stacked but unlit. The elder stepped into the circle and raised a hand. The wind shifted. The flames roared to life without a spark. Sophie grabbed Ethan's sleeve. Jade swore under her breath. Dylan whispered, Okay, yeah, that wasn't friction or oxygen or whatever. Laura remained at the edge of the circle, watching. The elder gestured for the six to stand around the fire. One by one, he said, the land will call you. Not all tonight. Not all together. Sophie took a breath. Call us for what? The elder walked slowly around the circle, studying each of their faces, deeply, as if memorizing every line. To show you what sleeps inside you. He stopped behind Ethan. You first. Ethan felt his stomach drop. Heat rolled across his skin like static. No, Jade insisted, stepping forward. Why him? Why always him? The elder regarded her, eyes steady. He hears what others ignore. Ethan swallowed, heart hammering. The elder placed his palm over Ethan's sternum. The world went silent. Not quiet, silent. No crackle of fire. No wind. No breath from anyone. Ethan heard only one thing. A low, thrumming pulse beneath the ground. The same sensation from earlier, but stronger. It wasn't a sound. It was pressure, vibration, intention. The elder's voice came from everywhere at once. Feel the land. The ground beneath Ethan's feet shifted. Not physically, energetically. He felt lines stretching out like veins under the earth, each one humming, connecting, a living network. He was standing on something ancient that carried memory the way a body carries blood. When he opened his eyes again, the others were staring at him as though he were someone new. The elder nodded. You are the compass. You will always know where the truth lies. Ethan didn't move. He barely breathed. Jade stared at him like she'd never seen him before. That's impossible, she whispered. Ethan looked up at her, and in that second knew exactly how many miles away the farm was. He knew the direction of the nearest river. He knew where the desert opened into canyonlands. I can feel the map, he whispered, under us. The elder pointed to the fire. Next, a spark shot from the flames and struck the ground at Sophie's feet. She gasped, The bonfire shimmered, and suddenly images appeared inside the flames. Not random shapes. Moments. Her taking photographs on a rooftop in Manchester. Her mother brushing her hair when she was 8. The 6 of them laughing in the pub before graduation. The fire showed memories. Sophie touched her chest. I don't understand. You see what others don't, the elder said. You show them truth. The flames shifted again, now showing something else. A future. Sophie on red earth. Camera hanging at her hip. Staring at something enormous beyond the horizon. She stepped back, trembling. I don't want this, she whispered. I just wanted adventure. You wanted purpose, the elder corrected. He turned. Mia. Mia approached the fire, shoulders tense. The flames softened. Light spiraled around her hands. Not bright, but warm, like dawn turning darkness into possibility. You are illumination, the elder said. You bring clarity where others see confusion. Tears filled Mia's eyes. Jade leaned toward Connor. If my power turns out to be emotional sensitivity, I'm going to throw myself off a cliff. The elder looked straight at her. You will feel what others hide. Jade froze. He stepped closer. You may run from your own feelings, but you will never again escape the truth. Jade's sarcasm evaporated. Fear slid into its place. Connor and Dylan remained. Connor stepped toward the fire. He felt the wind on his face change, pulling him north, then west, then south. His chest tightened. He felt orientation inside his bones. You carry direction, the elder said, not just of the earth, of people. Finally, Dylan approached. He swallowed, ready to humiliate himself. If mine is stupid, I swear. The flames pulsed. A rhythm moved through the fire, steady, quiet, hypnotic, a pattern. Dylan's heartbeat synced to it. You move the world by moving others, the elder said. You know when to push and when to hold steady. The fire collapsed inward, sparks spiraling upward into the night sky like burning stars. The elder spoke one final time. Together, you are more than chance. The flames died. Total darkness. Total silence. Then the stars flared back to life overhead, impossibly bright. Far brighter than they had been minutes ago. The desert had spoken, and it had chosen them. Chapter 19. The pull. None of them slept well, not because of nightmares, but because their minds refused to shut down. The sun was still low when they gathered outside the tent, sitting on overturned crates and dry logs. The settlement slept quietly behind them, but the desert stretched out before them, wide and waiting. Jade hugged her knees, her hair messy, her patience shorter than usual. I don't want this, she muttered. I didn't sign up to feel everybody's emotional laundry. Dylan raised a hand. Hi. Yes. I also did not sign up for whatever rhythm telepathy is. It's not telepathy, Connor said, rubbing his face. It's influence, or regulation, or something with tempo, which sounds insane, but so does... He gestured vaguely at Ethan and the desert. Ethan stood apart from them, staring into the horizon as if the ground itself held answers. Sophie watched him, sensing something she couldn't articulate. You feel again, don't you? She whispered. Ethan didn't turn, didn't blink. It's like a pulse, he said, under the ground, slow then faster, like something waking up. Jade threw her hands up. Great. The desert has a heartbeat. Love that for us. Sophie leaned forward, elbows on her knees. Maybe we're not supposed to fight it. Maybe this is part of the reason we're here. Reason? Jade snapped. We came to pick grapes and take pictures with kangaroos. Mia looked at her ankle, flawless skin with a venom should have destroyed tissue. We would have died out there, she said quietly. Or I would have. Silence fell, because that was true. Sophie swallowed. Maybe we owe him, the elder, at least the respect of hearing what comes next. No one disagreed out loud, but no one agreed either. Laura appeared as if she had been listening the entire time. You speak as if you have a choice, she said. Jade squared her jaw. We do. Laura glanced at Ethan. Do you? Ethan opened his mouth and froze. His vision blurred. The world shifted. For a moment, he wasn't standing in front of the camp. He was somewhere else. Red cliffs, the taste of iron in the air, wind pushing against him like a force, a voice not spoken, but pressed into his mind. Come. Then it was gone. He gasped and staggered. Sophie caught him. Ethan! He blinked, breath shuddering. There's the place. Out there. Connor stepped closer. What kind of place? I don't know, Ethan whispered, but whatever woke up last night, it wants us to go to it. Dylan pointed at Laura. And you just happen to know where this place is? Laura didn't hesitate. Yes. Jade stared. And you were just waiting for him to have a psychic GPS moment? Laura shrugged. Elder said you would follow when the land called again. Connor frowned. And if we don't... Laura met his eyes, calm, unwavering. Then the land will call louder. A distant rumble cut through the air. Not thunder, not machinery. A tremor. The ground beneath them shook, subtle but undeniable. Mia grabbed Sophie's arm. Tell me that was an earthquake. Ethan shook his head slowly. That was impatience. They followed Ethan to the edge of the clearing, only a few feet beyond the tents. The land dropped into a valley, opening toward the vast red emptiness. The wind shifted. A sudden gust ripped across them, warm and sharp, carrying dust and something else. Whispers. Not words. Not sounds. A feeling. Come. Ethan's pulse synced with it, guiding him forward like a lodestone. Sophie placed her hand on his shoulder. If we go out there, there's no undoing it. Jade crossed her arms. If we stay here, I'll punch someone. Dylan raised his hand. Probably me. Mia looked at all of them, at the fear, at the confusion, at the bonds forming in the cracks. And she smiled. We follow him. Connor nodded. We follow the truth. Ethan took the first step. The desert accepted it. The air shifted. The wind quieted. Laura watched them go, arms crossed. You take the road east, she said. By sunset, you'll reach the place that breathes. Ethan froze. The place that what? But Laura was already turning away, back toward the camp. The elder stood at the entrance of his tent. He didn't smile, didn't move. He just spoke 3 words into the wind. You are seen. The words trailed after them as they followed Ethan into the vast horizon of burning red dust. And far off, deep in the unseen desert, something stirred in answer. Chapter 20. The pulse of the desert. The desert was a cathedral of silence, not the peaceful kind, the kind that pressed against your ribs and squeezed the air out of your lungs. Heat shimmered above the dunes like the world was bending. Every step felt heavier than the one before, as if the earth was trying to keep them in place. Even breathing tasted like dust. Ethan walked ahead, eyes fixed on the horizon. He didn't look at a compass. He didn't check a map. He just knew. Something inside him pulled. Not a thought, not a voice, not even a feeling. A direction. Behind him, the others struggled. Remind me, Jade muttered, wiping sweat from her forehead. Whose idea was crossing hell without air conditioning? Technically, Connor answered. This region is classified as semi-arid, not. Connor, Jade snapped. If you finish that sentence, I will bury you in a semi-arid sand dune. Dylan didn't laugh. His expression was fixed on the ground, focused, intense. Guys, he said, slowing down. Do you feel that? Sophie stopped beside him. Feel what? Dylan crouched and pressed his palms to sand. Slight vibrations. Not random. They're directional. Like something is moving under us. Jade widened her eyes. Like a snake? No, Dylan whispered. Like a heartbeat. Mia walked a few steps behind, staring at her leg. No pain. No swelling. No scar. Just smooth skin, like the bite had never happened. She ran her fingers over the spot where the wound had been, the memory of poison, panic, fear, and swallowed. I shouldn't be able to walk, she murmured to Sophie. Sophie looked at her, mesmerized. It's like he erased it. The elder? Yes. And I know it sounds crazy, but Sophie hesitated. But what? This place feels familiar, like déjà vu on loop. Mia frowned. You've been here before? No, Sophie said, but I think my dreams have. The wind shifted, sharp and sudden. Sand spiraled around them in a tight column, almost like a vertical tornado. Ethan didn't flinch. He just lifted his chin, eyes narrowing towards something none of the others could see. Ethan, Connor called, slowed down. Ethan didn't even turn. His voice came out steady. Certain? We're close. Jade exchanged a look with Dylan. How does he know? She whispered. Dylan shook his head. Because the ground responds to him. They reached the top of a dune and stopped. Below them stretched a massive circular formation of stones. Perfectly symmetrical. Too perfect to be natural. A hidden amphitheater carved from the bones of the desert. Sophie shivered. That was not on any map. Mia whispered, It feels like it's waiting. Jade felt emotions crash over her. Excitement, fear, awe, none of them hers. Connor placed a calming hand on her shoulder, and her heartbeat steadied. He hadn't said a word. Ethan walked forward, down the slope toward the center. Ethan, wait! Connor called, but Ethan didn't stop. He moved like someone walking through a memory. When he stepped into the center of the stone circle, the earth pulsed. A soft glow radiated from beneath the sand, spreading outward like ripples in water. The others stumbled back, shielding their eyes. The ground vibrated, steady and rhythmic. Thump, 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 like a heart. Ethan whispered, barely audible, I've been here before. Mia approached cautiously. In a dream? He shook his head. No, in another life. The sand around his feet shifted, unveiling symbols. Ancient, carved into the rock below. Lines connected them, forming a pattern. A map or a seal. The wind stopped. Not slowed, stopped. Silence swallowed everything. Then, as if spoken from the earth itself, a voice, not heard with their ears, but inside their minds. The gift must be accepted. Together, the pulse brightened. The circle lit up. The desert woke. Chapter 21. The Night of Unspoken Things. The drive back to camp was silent. Not the comfortable kind of silence they were used to. The quiet after a long day of stupid jokes and inside references. No, this silence had weight. Ethan sat in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead. His eyes didn't blink often enough. Mia kept glancing at him from the back seat, as if checking that he was still breathing. Dylan tapped his fingers nervously on his knee, following a rhythm only he could feel. Connor finally spoke, his tone controlled. Okay, so we all agree that what happened wasn't normal? Jade snapped. Try impossible. Sophie raised her camera like a shield. Maybe we all just imagined it. Heat stroke, dehydration, group hallucination. No, Ethan interrupted. Just one word. Final. Sophie put her camera down. Outside, the outback was a dark sea of silhouettes and shadows. The headlights sliced through them, revealing only emptiness. Mia rubbed her leg. Not because it hurt, because it didn't. No scar, no memory on her skin. Just proof. Proof she couldn't explain. They reached the campsite late. The air was colder now, but the sand still held the day's heat, radiating upward like a strange second wind. Connor handed out bottles of water. Everybody drink. Eat something. Let's not pass out in our sleep. Jade paced in circles. We have to talk about what happened. We're exhausted, Sophie said. We talk tomorrow. No, Jade said louder. Tomorrow isn't enough. I felt something back there. We all did, Connor replied gently. Not like I did, Jade hissed. I could feel every single one of you. Your fear, your hope, your confusion. It was like having 6 radios playing inside my skull. Dylan froze. 6. Jade blinked. Yes, 6. Dylan spoke slowly. There are 6 of us. But I didn't feel us, Jade whispered. I felt 6 emotions that didn't belong to any of us. Silence fell again. Ethan finally turned toward her. His eyes weren't distant anymore. You felt the circle? Jade swallowed. Yes. Later, when everyone retreated into the camper, trying to pretend that sleep was possible, things got worse. Connor lay on the small bed, staring at the ceiling. His heartbeat was steady, calm. Too calm. The others were anxious, restless. But Connor felt centered. A strange clarity washed over him. He whispered to himself, "Breathe." And without intending to, he projected it. Mia, Sophie, Jade, and Dylan, scattered in different corners of the camper, exhaled deeply at the same time, their bodies relaxing. None of them noticed. Dylan couldn't sleep. The floor vibrated under him, steady, rhythmic, like a pulse. He pressed his palm to the wooden surface and whispered, "You're alive, aren't you?" The ground hummed in response. Sophie dreamed, not a normal dream. An overhead view, like she floated above her own body. She saw the circle of stones. She saw the elder sitting inside it, waiting. His eyes glowed with reflected firelight. When he looked up, Sophie felt it through her bones. "You are late." She woke up gasping. Ethan wasn't sleeping at all. He sat outside on the sand, staring into the darkness. The stars above him didn't look like stars. They looked like a map, a constellation of choices. A faint warmth spread under his skin, and he whispered, "I remember this feeling." From behind him, a voice, "You were there the longest." "Jade." Ethan didn't turn. "I don't remember being there." "No," Jade said softly, "but your soul does." Ethan closed his eyes. He didn't argue. Just before dawn, Jade shook everyone awake. "Get up," she said, breathless, shaking. "All of you." Connor rubbed his face. "What's happening?" Jade's voice broke. "We have to go back." "To the circle?" Mia asked. "No," Jade said, to him. Outside, the sky shifted from black to deep red, almost like the horizon was bleeding. Chapter 22. The Circle Remembers. Dawn bled across the horizon in a thin red line, turning the desert into a world made of rust and ash. Sand shifted under their boots as the six of them walked. No words, no complaints, no jokes. Just breathing, just purpose. The sky brightened slowly, as if reluctant to witness whatever was about to happen. Jade walked beside Ethan, matching his pace. She didn't need to ask where they were going. He knew. Sophie adjusted her backpack and tried to swallow the knot in her throat. "I keep seeing the stones," she whispered, "before we get there, in flashes, like photos taken out of time." Mia placed a hand on Sophie's shoulder, instinctively. A warm, calming pulse spread from her palm. "It's just nerves," Mia said. Jade glanced over. "No, it's not." They reached the first dune that overlooked the valley. The circle of stones pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat trapped in rock. Dylan sucked in a breath. "It's stronger." Connor shielded his eyes. "The sun isn't hitting it yet. That's not a reflection." Ethan descended without hesitation. The others followed. The closer they got, the more the sand moved beneath their feet, waves of grain shifting side to side, like something massive breathing under the surface. Sophie's camera trembled in her hands. She wasn't sure if it was the vibration or her pulse. When they reached the edge of the circle, Jade suddenly gasped and grabbed her chest. "Stop," she choked. "Emotions." Her knees buckled. Connor caught her before she hit the sand. "What do you feel?" he asked. She looked up, eyes wide and terrified. Recognition. The air split. Not a sound, a presence. From between two monoliths of sandstone, the elder appeared, not walking, not materializing, simply existing, as if he had always been there. He looked exactly as before, skin darkened by sun and time, hair braided with red earth dust, eyes reflecting light that wasn't there. But this time, he smiled. "You listened." No one spoke. Jade found her voice first. "Barely. What is happening to us?" The elder's gaze swept over each of them, slow and deliberate. "You touched the center," he said. "You woke what sleeps in this land, and what sleeps inside you." Dylan stepped forward. "Are you saying we have powers?" The elder tilted his head gently. "I am saying you remember." He walked toward the circle. None of them moved. Mia Lambert. He extended a hand, not touching her, just hovering over her leg. The healed skin shimmered faintly. "You carry the gift of renewal. Life answers when you call it." Mia swallowed, shaking. He turned to Jade. Jade Russo. He tapped 2 fingers against his own chest. You feel what others hide. Truth will never escape you. Jade blinked back tears. To Connor. Connor Blake. Balance follows you. Where there is chaos, you bring order. To Dylan. Dylan Brooks. This land speaks. You are the one who hears. To Sophie. Sophie Alice. You see not what is, but what might be. Finally, he faced Ethan. The air around him grew still. And you, Ethan Wells. The elder placed a hand over Ethan's heart. You are the key. You are the one who remembers the path. Ethan's breath trembled. I don't remember anything. You will, the elder murmured. When the fire shows you. He stepped into the center of the circle. A flame erupted from the sand, blue, silent, unnatural. It rose without consuming anything, a pillar of shimmering fire. The elder sat cross-legged beside it and gestured to the ground. Sit. One by one, they lowered themselves around the fire. Heartbeats synchronized. Breath matched breath. The flame pulsed, casting blue reflections on their skin. You were not chosen, the elder said. The flame brightened. You chose this. The fire roared upward, engulfing everything. And then, darkness. Chapter 23. The memory of fire. Darkness wasn't empty. It breathed. A low hum vibrated through Ethan's bones, like the earth itself was chanting. He opened his eyes, not in the desert, not anywhere he recognized. He stood inside the stone circle, but it was different. The sky was darker, swollen with storm clouds. Torches burned in the sand. People surrounded the circle. Faces painted in clay, bodies draped in kangaroo hide, eyes reflecting firelight. An older Ethan stood in the center. Same jawline, same eyes, but there was something ancient in the way he held himself, steady, grounded, as if every movement belonged to the land. Present Ethan tried to speak. What is this? A voice, his own but deeper, answered. Memory. The wind howled and the scene dissolved. Jade. She was somewhere warm, a cave lit with dim orange light. Dozens of people sat around her, weeping, laughing, singing. They weren't strangers. She knew every single emotion in that room. Love, relief, mourning, hope. Their feelings washed through her like a tidal wave, and it hurt in a way nothing physical ever had. A young woman approached her and placed a baby in her arms. Guide us, the woman whispered. Jade's heart broke under the weight of all their trust. She wasn't reading emotions. She was carrying them. Connor. He stood on a high ridge overlooking a massive group, maybe 50 people, crossing the desert below. They moved perfectly in sync. Every step matched. Every breath aligned. Connor raised a hand and they stopped as one, not with fear, but with absolute confidence in him. Order wasn't something he imposed. It was something he radiated. Dylan. He stood barefoot on red earth, eyes closed, palms pressed to the ground. And he heard everything. Every insect crawling under the soil, every shift of sand dunes, every heartbeat of every human in a mile radius. The land wasn't silent. It was singing. MIA. A woman lay dying on a woven mat, her breathing shallow. Her family cried around her. Mia knelt at her side. She didn't know what to do until her hands moved on her own, hovering inches above the woman's chest. Warmth glowed beneath her palms. Not heat. Life. The woman gasped, eyes snapping open, and everyone around them fell to their knees. Sophie. She saw the future. Not a metaphor, not a feeling. A vision, sharp and unforgiving. The group, torn apart. Sophie on her knees, screaming Ethan's name as someone dragged him away. Jade covered in dust. Connor bleeding from the forehead. Darkness swallowing the circle of stones. Then, a choice. A hand reaching out. Sophie woke with tears streaming down her face. Ethan again. The vision returned, but closer this time. Ancient Ethan held something small in his hands. Smooth, black, polished by time. A stone. He placed it into the hands of 5 others, circling him. Jade. Connor. Dylan. Mia. Sophie. His voice echoed, layered across time. Together we are the path. Alone we are the ruin. Present then tried to reach him. Why us? Ancient Ethan looked directly into his eyes. Because you chose as long before you were born. Blue fire erupted around him. Everything vanished. Ethan gasped and sat upright, back in the present. Sand stuck to his palms, chest heaving. The fire was gone. The circle silent again. The others woke at the same time, all of them breathing like they'd run miles. Nobody spoke. They didn't need to. The elder stood at the edge of the circle, watching. "You have seen," he said softly. Ethan forced himself to stand. His legs shook. "Seen what?" "Yourselves." His gaze was calm, proud, sad. Not who you are, who you were. The wind picked up, swirling around them. The elder took a slow step back. Now begins the difficult part. Mia swallowed. What part? He met her eyes. Deciding what you will do with what you remember. And just like that, he was gone, vanished into air. The wind died. Silence settled. Jade looked at the others, voice trembling. "We can't go back to our old lives, can we?" Ethan brushed sand from his hands, staring at the empty space where the elder had stood. "No," he said, steady and certain. "Not anymore." Chapter 24. The First Awakening. The desert at dawn was nothing but silence and breath. A pale strip of light cut the horizon, brushing the dunes with the first warmth of morning. The air was still cold. The sand beneath their feet held the last memory of a night. No one parlava. No one moved. They were all standing exactly where they had collapsed after the visions. 6 friends, 6 destinies altered forever. Ethan broke the silence first. "Last night wasn't a dream," he said, barely above a whisper. "We felt something. We saw things we weren't supposed to see." Mia hugged her arms around her chest, shivering from something deeper than cold. But what does it mean? None of them had an answer. The desert usually made them feel small, but now it felt like it was listening. Ethan inhaled sharply, a spark in his eyes. Equal parts fear and determination. "If what happened was real," he said, "then we should be able to do something." Sophie blinked. "Do something like what?" He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped away from them, into the open, palms sweating. He focused on the space in front of him, the way the elder had taught. Slow breath, stillness, no fear. Ethan exhaled and vanished, not like a trick of the light, not like he crouched behind something. He was simply gone. Mia gasped and covered her mouth. Jade swore under her breath. Dylan took an instinctive step back. Connor searched the air like Ethan might be hiding behind it. A faint ripple shimmered where Ethan had been, like heat above asphalt. "Ethan?" Jade called. His voice came from nowhere. "Okay, this is insane. I can hear myself, but I can't see myself." A second later, the air folded back into shape. Ethan reappeared, breathless and pale. "H! Holy shit," he whispered. Mia took a hesitant step toward him. "How did you do that?" "I didn't." Ethan ran a hand through his hair. "I just wanted to disappear. And I did." The air felt charged, almost humming. Jade, heart racing, pointed to a small stone near Mia's feet. "Okay, your turn." Mia frowned. "My turn for what?" "Whatever it is you can do." Mia knelt, placing her hand a few centimeters above the stone. She closed her eyes, fragile, uncertain. Her breathing steadied, her brows softened. The stone trembled, then rose, just a few centimeters at first, then 10, then 20. Mia gasped and fell backward. The stone dropped but didn't hit the ground. It hovered for a heartbeat longer, suspended by something that wasn't wind or luck or physics. Then it settled on the sand without noise. Mia looked at her hands like they belonged to someone else. "I'm not touching anything. I just felt it, like the stone was listening to me." Jade stepped closer, heart hammering. She couldn't take her eyes off Mia. "I can feel something too," Jade said. "I don't know how to explain it, but..." She turned to Connor. "Why are you scared?" Connor froze. "I didn't say anything." "You didn't have to." The weight of her words pressed down on him. Jade didn't look surprised. She looked terrified. Sophie swallowed. "I think she felt what you were feeling." Connor rubbed his face, grounding himself, and suddenly, without warning, a wave of calm radiated outward from him, like warm water filling their lungs. Heartbeat slowed. Breathing eased. Jade blinked, dizzy. What were you doing? Connor stared at his own hands. I don't know. I just didn't want you to be scared. Dylan crouched, touching the ground with his fingertips, as if drawn by something only he could hear. His eyes widened. There's a hollow space underneath us, he murmured. 5 meters down. Like a chamber. I can hear it. No one questioned it. Not anymore. Sophie was the last. She looked up at Ethan, just as he shifted his weight, preparing to jump onto a rock. But before he moved, she spoke. Don't. You'll slip? Ethan froze. How did you know? I saw you do it, Sophie said. 3 seconds from now. Their eyes locked. This time, no one laughed. No one doubted. They stood there, 6 of them, in the middle of the desert, where the world was silent and impossible was suddenly real. Ethan looked at each of them. Mia, Jade, Connor, Dylan, Sophie. We're not the same people who came here, he said quietly. The sun rose behind them, painting their shadows long across the sand. Whatever this is, Sophie added, it's bigger than us. Ethan nodded. We need to go home. No one argued, because in that moment they all knew Australia had changed them, and the world wasn't ready for what they had become. Chapter 25. The Return. The desert was still sleeping when they woke. A silver-blue dawn stretched across the horizon, painting the sand with soft light. For 6 months, the outback had been their world. Its silence their teacher, its heat their test, its secrets their transformation. Today, they were leaving, not running, not fleeing, leaving with intention. They gathered near the elders' shelter, still wrapped in blankets. Laura waited for them, arms crossed, trying to hide the sadness in her face. No one leaves without one final test, she said quietly. Ethan exchanged a look with the others. They already knew what she meant. Let's show control, he whispered. Jade stepped forward first. She closed her eyes, breathing slowly. The air around her shifted, warming. Sand beneath her feet trembled. She opened her eyes and looked straight at Dylan. You're anxious, she murmured, but excited. You don't want us to leave. Dylan swallowed hard. She was right. Ethan grinned. My turn. He relaxed his shoulders and exhaled. For a moment, he seemed to blur, edges dissolving into the air. Then he vanished. Not hidden. Gone. Mia gasped. Ethan? His voice floated from nowhere. Still here. He reappeared beside Jade, breathing a little too fast. Feels like pulling yourself out of reality, he whispered. Mia stepped onto a flat rock. She hesitated, then lifted one foot, then the other. Her body rose from the ground, hovering, weightless. She laughed, a bright, shimmering sound. Flying feels like trusting the air. Sophie moved without speaking. The world around her blurred. No invisibility, no vanishing, just a pull, subtle and magnetic, shifting attention away from her. Even Jade blinked, confused. I don't disappear, Sophie whispered. I become unnoticed. Dylan knelt, placing his fingertips on the ground. A low vibration spread through the earth in a perfect circle. There's water, he said, pointing northeast. 3 meters deep, moving. Connor stood perfectly still. He didn't need gestures. He simply spoke. Stand together. Without hesitation, all 5 stepped into a line, perfectly synchronized. He froze, stunned. Okay, that wasn't me thinking. That was pure influence. They looked at one another. Different powers. Same destiny. Connor placed his hand in the center. One promise, before we go back. One by one, the others stacked their hands on top of his. Ethan, no powers in public. Jade, no risks. Mia, no secrets between us. Dylan, no turning against each other. Sophie, softly, whatever the future brings, we face it together. Their hands tightened. Something warm rippled through the circle, as if the desert itself had heard the vow. Laura hugged Jade first, holding her tightly. You don't owe the world anything, Laura whispered, but you owe yourselves the truth. Mia hugged her next, voice trembling. You saved my life. Laura shook her head. The elder only revealed what was already inside you. The elder approached. He placed a hand gently on Mia's shoulder, then on Ethan's chest, then on Sophie's forehead, one touch each. You came here as many, he said. You leave as one. He paused, eyes deep with knowledge. Your powers are not gifts. They are debts. No one understood the meaning, but they felt its weight. The automatic doors opened. Cold air conditioning hit them like a wave. Voices, screens, announcements, civilization. It felt wrong. Sophie's fingers tightened around her passport. This place is too loud. Connor nodded. We were gone for 6 months. Everything's loud now. As they walked toward security, Jade stopped. Are we normal now? Ethan laughed once, without humor. No, we're pretending. They reached the metal barrier. Connor extended his hand one last time. Together, they all placed their hands over his. Ethan looked at each of them. We go home. We blend in. No powers, no mistakes. Mia smiled sadly. And no one ever knows what happened here. They entered the security line. Sophie turned once more to the glass windows, watching the desert fade behind the airport structures. For a split second, Ethan's reflection disappeared. Her breath caught. She didn't say a word. They walked down the jet bridge. Mia whispered, Do you think life will go back to normal? Connor answered without turning. No. Ethan glanced at the desert one last time. We didn't just survive the outback, he murmured. We woke up. They stepped onto the plane. The doors closed. They were going home, but something was coming with them. Chapter 26. Back to the world. Manchester smelled like rain. The automatic doors of the airport slid open and swallowed them into a wave of noise. Honking cars, rolling suitcases, people yelling into phones. After 6 months of wind, sand, and silence, the city felt like an assault. Jade stopped on the sidewalk, eyes wide. This is loud. Ethan lifted his hood, gaze darting around. It's just Manchester, he muttered. But it didn't feel like just anything. Connor raised his hand, whistled for 2 taxis, and, without meaning to, both drivers pulled over instantly. No hesitation, no competition. The others looked at him. Connor swallowed. Okay, that was weird. Homecoming. Their families greeted them with tears, questions, and hugs that lasted a little too long. Mia's mother pressed her hands to Mia's cheeks. You lost weight. Darling, are you eating? Jade's father tried not to cry. Her mother didn't bother. Dylan's little sister hugged him around the waist and refused to let go. Ethan's mom touched his face like she thought he might disappear again. Connor's parents simply held him tightly, like grounding him. Sophie smiled for pictures, but inside she felt like she was shrinking, folding herself back into a life that didn't fit anymore. Day 3. The powers return. Jade. Supermarket. Queue at the checkout. Ordinary chaos. Then a wave of emotions slammed into her. Anxiety, stress, irritation, exhaustion, all at once, all from strangers. The air around her pulsed. A woman behind her was panicking about bills she couldn't pay. A man in front of her was terrified of a medical exam. A child missed his dog. Jade gasped and grabbed the shopping cart to stay upright. Too many emotions. Too loud. Too much. She dropped everything and ran out. Dylan, at the tram stop. Dylan placed one foot on the pavement and flinched. He felt movement. Not footsteps, vibrations beneath the city. The tram approaching. A train below ground. Water pipes. Electricity. The world was humming under his feet. You okay? Someone asked. Dylan backed away slowly. Yeah, just dizzy. But he wasn't dizzy. He was tuned in. Mia, her bedroom. Night. Silence. She sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed. Breathe. Just breathe. Her body lifted. Not a jump. A slow, terrifying ascent. Mia opened her eyes in panic. Her toes were hovering above the carpet. No, not now. She dropped back down, heart racing. Sophie, at a cafe. A barista turned with a tray. Sophie's vision flashed. A cup falling, milk spilling, someone slipping. She stood abruptly. Careful, she blurted. The barista froze, just before bumping into a chair. The tray stayed upright. Sophie sank back into her seat, shaking. Ethan, crosswalk, traffic light flashing red. He stepped off the curb. A horn blared. A car swerved. Panic shot through him. And suddenly there was no Ethan. He vanished for 3 seconds. The driver stared, mouth open. Ethan reappeared on the sidewalk, gasping for air. Oh, shit. Connor, university library. A classmate argued with him during a group project. Connor didn't raise his voice. He simply said, sit down. The entire table sat down. All of them. Connor froze. They were obeying him. Instinctively, he left without taking his books. The pub, the same table, the same wooden walls, the same warm lights. Months ago, this was where they decided to go to Australia. But tonight, no one smiled. Jade stared into her drink. I thought coming home would fix everything. Mia was pale. I floated. I actually floated. Sophie whispered, the future keeps leaking. Dylan rubbed his temples. The city vibrates. Everything vibrates. Connor looked at Ethan, the only one not speaking. Ethan's jaw tightened. I disappeared, in the middle of a fucking road. Silence. Then Ethan leaned forward, voice low and dangerous. We promise to hide them, but what if they don't want to stay hidden? Outside, rain hit the windows in steady sheets. Manchester didn't know it yet, but 6 extraordinary humans had returned home, and the world was about to change. Chapter 27. The First Exposure. Jade hated mornings, especially school mornings. She sat at the kitchen table, halfway through a bowl of cereal, while her little brother, Luca, bounced around the room like a pinball. You ready? She asked, grabbing her jacket. Luca nodded, mouth full of toast. Can we get hot chocolate on the way? We'll see. Which meant, yes, it always meant yes. They stepped outside. Manchester was gray and wet, the sidewalk still shining from the early rain. Jade tightened her scarf and held Luca's backpack so he wouldn't drag it through a puddle. They reached the main road. Rush hour traffic. Luca hummed a theme song from a cartoon. She smiled. Normal. Quiet. Safe. The pedestrian light was red. Jade checked her phone. 6 new messages from the group chat. All memes Dylan kept sending at 7 a.m. like a psychopath. The light hadn't changed yet. Cars rushed past. She looked down, just for a second. Luca didn't wait. He stepped into the street. Luca! A horn. A scream. A flash of metal. The car hit him. He flew. And then, silence. Impact. Jade dropped her phone. No. She ran, knees hitting the asphalt, palms tearing on the wet road. Luca was on his back, eyes half open, not breathing. Her whole world collapsed. Baby, please. Jade pressed both hands to his chest. Come on, breathe. Nothing. She attempted CPR, sobbing so violently she could barely count compressions. Don't do this to me, she whispered. Luca, please. People gathered. A woman called an ambulance. Someone started recording. Jade didn't feel them. She only felt the absence of his breathing. Her tears fell onto his shirt. And without thinking, without planning, she called them, not with words. With her mind. The arrival. The air shifted. 5 shapes appeared around her, materializing like they'd been pulled out of thin air. Ethan, Sophie, Mia, Connor, Dylan, panting, confused, already kneeling. What happened? Ethan asked, voice shaking. He's not breathing. Jade sobbed. Please, help me. Connor's voice hardened. Hands on him. Now. No discussion. No questions. They formed a circle around the small body, lying on the wet asphalt. 6 hands. 1 heartbeat. Mia whispered, please work. Jade shut her eyes. Sophie felt the future bend. Ethan opened his hands, palms glowing. Dylan felt the ground vibrate. Connor steadied the rhythm. And then it happened. Light burst from under their palms. White, pulsing, alive. It wasn't gentle. It was a force, like heat, like thunder, like life itself. People gasped. Someone screamed. A car door slammed. Phones were pointed at them. Recording. The light intensified. Jade felt her chest splitting open, not with pain, with hope. And then Luca inhaled sharply, like someone surfacing from underwater. His eyes fluttered open. "Jade!" he whispered. Jade choked on a sob and pulled him into her arms. He was warm. He was breathing. He was alive. Aftermath. They stayed frozen on their knees, hands still touching the asphalt, breathing hard. Around them, phones recording strangers staring a world watching. Ethan looked up, face pale. People saw us. Connor swallowed. They filmed us. Sophie whispered, "We can't undo this." Jade held her brother, shaking. "What do we do now?" 6 of them. One miracle. Dozens of witnesses. And no going back. The secret is gone. The world has seen. Chapter 28. Viral. The world wasn't the same anymore. Or maybe they weren't. Jade couldn't recall how she got out of the chaos. She only remembered sirens, screaming, phones held up everywhere, that blinding light bursting from their hands, and the smell of hot asphalt. She couldn't shake the image. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her brother's body on the ground. Still, cold. Now the 6 of them were squeezed into Ethan's tiny living room. Curtains shut, phones off, hoodies pulled low. No one spoke. No one dared. On Ethan's laptop, the video played on loop. All 6 of them kneeling, hands pressed on the little boy's chest. The explosion of white light. Then the clip ended, replaced by the face of a hyped influencer. "Guys, that's not editing. Look at the shadows. They change direction when that light appears. Powers? Magic? A miracle." Ethan snapped the laptop shut as if it burned him. "Enough. We're not watching any more of that." Mia's breathing was uneven. Her eyes were swollen and red. She kept digging her nails into her palms like she needed to feel pain to stay grounded. "It was my brother. I was supposed to just walk him to school. Just—" "You saved him," Connor interrupted gently, though his jaw was tight. "Without you, he'd be dead." "I didn't save him," she whispered. "We did. All of us." Dylan paced back and forth like a trapped animal. Every time he neared the window, Sophie flinched. "Too much movement outside," Dylan muttered. "Engines running. Cars parked, but nobody gets out. Those aren't random people." Sophie was perched stiffly on the edge of the couch, pupils wide, staring into nothing like she was watching a different world entirely. "It's everywhere," she said softly. "TV, blogs, forums. They're tracking us. Tracing. Searching." A vibration cut through the silence. Ethan's phone lit up on the table, despite being turned off. Unknown number. One single message. "We need to talk." "I know what you are." Ethan's face drained of color. Connor grabbed the phone from his hand. "Who is it?" "I don't know," Ethan stammered. "I've never seen that number." Sophie closed her eyes. Slow inhale. Slow exhale. The room seemed to shrink around her. "It's not just one," she whispered. "Cameras. Live streams. People zooming into our faces. Someone already knows where we live." Silence. Heavy. Thick. A knock on the door. 3 sharp hits. Knock. 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 Dylan froze. Connor stood up, instinctively moving toward the door. Jade held her breath. A voice from the hallway. Calm. Too calm. "We're here to help you. Open the door." It didn't sound like a request. Connor reached for the lock. "Don't." Mia hissed, grabbing his sleeve. "You don't know who it is." Connor turned and looked at each of them, his expression steady, unshakable. "From now on, the world knows we exist." Another series of pounding knocks shook the door. Knock, knock, knock. Sophie whispered, barely audible, as if speaking to a presence only she could sense. "The miracle is over. The hunt has begun." Chapter 29. The Visitor. The knocking doesn't stop. Connor freezes halfway to the door, listening, heart pounding so loud it's almost painful. Dylan can feel the vibrations of heavy footsteps outside the apartment. Jade senses anxiety, not theirs but from whoever is on the other side. Ethan fades in and out of visibility like a glitch. Sophie keeps getting flashes of a bright white room, and Mia's fingertips tremble as if the air is charged. Another knock. More controlled, more deliberate. Bang, bang, bang. Connor turns toward the others. If it's the police, we say nothing without a lawyer. Ethan swallows hard. If it's a kidnapping organization, what's the plan then? No one answers. Connor grips the handle, counts to 3, and opens the door. Standing there is a woman in her 50s, wearing a tailored black coat and holding a small tablet. Not police, not secret agents in tactical gear. She looks like someone sent to negotiate the sale of a skyscraper. Her voice is calm. Too calm. Good evening. I'm Dr. Evelyn Rhodes. She lifts a wallet with an ID card inside. Connor notices she doesn't let them look at it long enough to read the affiliation. We're not interested. Connor tries to close the door. The woman stops it with a single hand. Not forcefully, just confidently. You were seen healing a child in the middle of the street. All 6 freeze. She swipes on her tablet. A still frame appears. The blinding white light. Them kneeling around the child. Jade's heart drops to the floor. We don't want to expose you. Rhodes says. We want to protect you. Jade feels her emotions. She's telling the truth, but hiding something. Dylan senses movement through floorboards. 3 people waiting downstairs. Ethan's voice cracks. Who exactly is we? Rhodes smiles as if she's been waiting for question. Global Cognitive Research Initiative. Each word echoes like a courtroom verdict. You're not an initiative. You're the government. She tilts her head. Governments react. We anticipate. Her eyes lock on Connor. You aren't just 6 young adults with abilities. You are a pattern. Sophie holds a doorframe to keep her balance. A pattern of what? The woman steps half an inch closer. Evolution. The word chills the room. Mia shakes her head. We're not experiments. Dr. Rhodes doesn't flinch. Several agencies are already trying to locate you. Some want to contain you. Others want to control you. She places a business card on the table by the entrance. Call me when you're tired of hiding. Connor's jaw tightens. We're not going anywhere with you. Rhodes finally steps back into the hall. Before the elevator closes, she gives him one last warning. Soon you won't have a choice. Silence. Ethan lets out the breath he was holding. Guys, did we just get recruited or hunted? Connor picks up the card from the table. There's no phone number, no address, just 3 letters embossed in silver. GCRI. He turns toward the group. We saved a boy's life, and now we have to save ourselves. Fade out. Chapter 30. The Plan. Manchester, 7:42 p.m. Connor locked the apartment door and slid the deadbolt in place. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The city noise outside felt like pressure on the windows, sirens, traffic, voices. Everything was too loud, too close. Ethan paced the living room. Okay, he said, running a hand through his hair. Someone tell me we are overreacting. We are not. Jade's voice trembled despite her attempt to sound calm. I can feel it. Fear everywhere. Paranoia. Suspicion. The city knows something. Jade wasn't talking about intuition. She felt the emotions around her, absorbing them like static electricity. Dylan stood with one palm pressed the floor, his eyes unfocused. Trucks, he murmured. Heavy ones. 2 streets away. They've stopped moving. Mia swallowed hard. Involuntary telekinesis. A glass on the table began to float just a few centimeters. She gasped and grabbed it before it fell. Sophie sat on the armrest of the couch, knees pulled to her chest. I keep seeing flashes, she whispered. They're knocking on this door. Same room, same moment. She pointed exactly toward the door. Just not tonight. Not yet. Connor paced slowly, thinking, calculating. He wasn't panicking. Leadership was his power, and it was growing stronger. Everyone instinctively watched him, waiting. We promised not to use the powers, Ethan said. Yeah, Connor replied, and we kept that promise until a kid died in the street. Silence. He continued. We saved a life. They saw it, and now someone wants to own us. Mia looked up, voice barely audible. Connor, what do we do? He exhaled, made a decision. We disappear. Ethan scoffed. You mean run? I mean strategically vanish. No planes, no credit cards, no digital trail. We get out of England. Quietly. Jade blinked fast. And go where? Back to the Australian desert? Connor nodded. We find Laura. We find the elder. They know what we are. Maybe they know how to stop what's happening to us. Sophie's voice was a whisper. But if we go back, maybe there's no coming home this time. Home isn't safe anymore, Connor replied. They spread out around the table, planning. Ethan, invisibility, would scout train stations for cameras. Mia and Sophie would book tickets using random accounts created on stolen Wi-Fi. Jade would monitor emotional spikes. If fear flooded the room, it meant danger. Dylan would sense movement around the building. The group worked like a machine. Not 6 friends. 6 forces. Connor checked his phone for the time. 7:58 p.m. We leave before sunrise, he said. East Coast. Ferry to Amsterdam. Then flights booked from internet cafes along the way. We stay moving. We stay unseen. Everyone nodded. For a moment, the fear lifted. The plan gave them control again. Then, Jade's phone vibrated. She glanced at it and turned white. Who is it? Connor asked. She swallowed, voice tiny. I don't know. Unknown number. The screen had only one message. You can't run. Jade's hand shook. Then, seconds later, a second message appeared. We already know your plan. They froze. Connor stepped beside her, looking over her shoulder. Sophie exhaled sharply. They're already watching. Jade felt a wave of terror coming from the apartment hallway. Fear, adrenaline, urgency. Dylan whispered, someone's outside. Connor didn't hesitate. Lights off, phones off. Nobody makes a sound. The room plunged into darkness. Outside, footsteps approached. Closer, closer. The final line of the chapter. In the silence, 6 powers awaken at once. Chapter 31. The Breakout. Manchester, 8:03 p.m. Total darkness. No one moved. No one breathed. Outside the apartment door, footsteps echoed in the corridor. Deliberate, synchronized, purposeful. The metal of the lock rattled softly, as if someone were testing the handle from the other side. Connor mouthed, "Don't move." Ethan, already trembling from adrenaline, closed his eyes and vanished, not gradually. Gone. Jade flinched from the sudden emotional spike in the room. Everyone was terrified, but the fear coming from outside was different. Focused, trained, predatory. Not cops. Hunters. Dylan dropped to one knee, palm pressed against the floorboards. His pupils expanded. 2 teams, he whispered. 1 at the stairwell. 1 at the elevator. Mia's hand shook. The glass on the coffee table began to rise off the surface. Slowly, like gravity had forgotten it. Sophie stared at the front door, body rigid, eyes going distant. "A window," she whispered. "Back of the building. If we go now, we make it. If we hesitate." She didn't finish. Ethan reappeared beside the peephole, voice no more than breath. 6 men in the corridor. No uniforms. No badges. Connor inhaled sharply. His voice was low, steady, commanding. "We use what we have. No holding back this time." He pointed toward the hallway. "Jade, if they get too close, overload them. Make them panic." Jade swallowed hard. I can try." "Mia," he continued, "open the back window." Quietly. She nodded. The air vibrated around her palms. The locked window slid open without touching it. "Dylan, find us a clear path down." "I already did," Dylan said, eyes still closed. "Fire escape. 10 meters to the left once we're out the window." And Ethan, Connor looked toward the space Ethan occupied, even though he was invisible. "Be our ghost." A soft voice replied, "Already am." Sophie lifted her head, vision flashing bright behind her eyes. "If we wait another 30 seconds, they'll break down the door." That was enough. Connor whispered, "Go." They moved. Mia levitated the window, fully open. The cold night air flooded in. Dylan swung out first, landing silently on the metal fire escape. Jade hesitated. Fear wasn't just around her. It was in her. She felt the heavy wave of intent from the corridor. The men outside had no doubts, no hesitation. Their emotions were sharp like knives. Sophie reached for her hand. We're not meant to be trapped. Jade nodded and climbed to the window. A loud metallic click echoed from the door lock. Connor whispered, "Move, move." One after another, they descended the fire escape. Ethan remained behind, still invisible, watching through the peephole. The door burst inward. Men in black flooded into the apartment. Ethan whispered into Connor's ear, though he was still on the stairs. "They're inside." Connor didn't ask how. He just ran down the fire escape, landing in the narrow alley. Rain slicked the pavement, reflecting the neon lights from the street. Behind them, boots pounded. "Left," Dylan hissed. "Trust me." Connor turned without hesitation. Jade and Sophie followed. Mia and Dylan sprinted behind them. Ethan reappeared at the back of the pack. Breathless, they reached the intersection of two alleys just as a black SUV screeched onto the street. Headlights flared. Jade panicked. Her emotions surged outward, raw, electric, and suddenly the driver inside the SUV grabbed his chest, gasping, overwhelmed by fear that wasn't his own. "Keep going," Connor shouted. They sprinted into a dim side street. Mia's power flared. She lifted a dumpster with pure panic and slammed it behind them, blocking the alley. The agent shouted, "Trapped." Sophie looked down the street and pointed to an old pedestrian tunnel beneath the road. "There!" They raced through the tunnel, emerging near a small, almost abandoned local train station. No crowds, no cameras, just a single train on the platform, doors still open. Connor didn't slow. On. Now! They jumped onto the train as the doors slid closed behind them. Inside, fluorescent lights flickered. No passengers. No noise but their breathing. Ethan slid down into a seat, chest heaving. "We actually did it." Jade collapsed on the floor, shaking. Sophie leaned against the window, staring at her reflection as if seeing a stranger. Mia still had tears on her face. "We used them, all of us," Dylan whispered, and it felt right. Connor stood in the center of the carriage, the train pulling away from the station, Manchester shrinking into the distance. He spoke quietly, but every word was steel. "We're not hiding anymore." His friends looked up. "We're escaping." The train disappeared into the darkness of the night. Chapter 32. No return. Southbound train, 11:54 p.m. The carriage swayed gently as the train cut through the night. For a moment, none of them spoke. Rain streaked against the windows like thin silver threads, blurring the world outside into a smear of lights and darkness. They weren't running from Manchester anymore. They were running from the world. Connor sat on the edge of his seat, holding a folded paper map. An actual map, not digital, not traceable. "We get off at the next station," he said. "We walk south until we reach the ferry terminal. No taxis, no cards, no cameras." Jade exhaled shakily. "We're not ghosts, Connor." "We are now," Ethan muttered, resting his head against the window. Mia hugged her knees to her chest. "All of this because we brought a kid back to life." Sophie corrected her quietly. "No, all of this because we could." Dylan stood near the door, palm flat against the metal frame. He was feeling for vibrations, checking if anyone was approaching the carriage. "They're still tracking us," he murmured. One car, following the train along the road to the south. They all tensed. Jade closed her eyes. "I don't need powers to know that fear is spreading." Connor unfolded the map again. Brighton Ferryport. From there, we get to France. Then Amsterdam. From Amsterdam, flights to Australia. Ethan let out a short breath, somewhere between a laugh and disbelief. "We're actually doing this. Running away to the other side of the planet." "No," Sophie whispered. "We're returning." They all looked at her. "What do you mean?" Mia asked. Sophie stared out into the night, her reflection fractured in the glass. "I had another vision. Not like before. Clearer. We're in the desert again. Not lost. Expected. Jade shivered. By who? Sophie's voice was barely audible. By the elder. Dylan moved away from the door. Then maybe that's where we're supposed to be. Connor nodded slowly. I don't think we chose the powers, Dylan added. I think the powers chose us. Silence. Mia finally spoke, voice cracking. What if the powers change us? What if we lose who we are? Connor leaned forward, elbows on his knees. We don't lose who we are, he said firmly. We decide who we become. The train began to slow, brakes screeching softly. A small rural station appeared outside the windows, empty, dimly lit, surrounded by nothing but wet pavement and fog. Sophie stood first. When we get off this train, she said, there's no coming back. Connor looked at each of them, one by one. We crossed that line the moment we saved that kid. The train stopped. The doors slid open. Cold night air rushed in like a warning. They stepped onto the platform, 6 silhouettes against the fog. Behind them, as the train pulled away, headlights appeared on the road beyond the station. A dark SUV. Waiting. Watching. Hunting. Connor whispered. Move. Quietly. They disappeared into the night. Chapter 33. The ferry escape. Coast of southern England. 2:17 a.m. Rain hammered down in sheets. The 6 of them moved quickly along the narrow coastal road, hoods up, shoulders hunched, soaked to the skin. Each step splashed through cold puddles. They hadn't slept in over 24 hours. Behind them, headlights appeared again. Slow, controlled, hunting. Jade didn't need to turn around. She felt them. Calm, focused, no hesitation. Their emotions were cold steel. They're not nervous, she whispered. They think they've already won. Dylan placed his hand on the pavement. The rain ran down his arm. 2 engines, he said. Not just one SUV. There's another on the parallel road. They're boxing us in. Connor clenched his jaw, but didn't slow down. We keep moving. Sophie stepped closer to him. We need a plan, not blind hope. Connor pointed toward the glowing lights in the distance. That is a plan. The ferry leaves at 2:40. We get on it. Ethan let out a breathless half-laugh. Incredible plan. Revolutionary. Step 1, run. Step 2, boat. But he didn't argue further. The rain grew heavier as they reached the port. A maze of shipping containers, wet asphalt, bright artificial floodlights cutting through the night. Only a handful of people were inside the terminal. A worker mopping, a bored security guard, a vending machine light buzzing, and cameras everywhere. Connor cursed under his breath. Too many eyes. I've got it, Ethan whispered and vanished. A moment later, the lights in the security booth flickered. Ethan's voice reached them through the walkie-talkie near the ticket desk. 6 tickets. Paid cash. No digital trail. A drawer slid open on its own. 6 paper tickets floated out. Mia grabbed the midair. Even Sophie was impressed. Smooth. They moved through the terminal, keeping their heads low. The exit to the boarding ramp was in sight. Then, the automatic doors slammed shut. All 6 flinched. Outside on the wet pavement below, 2 black SUVs pulled up at the base of the loading ramp. Doors opened. 6 men stepped out. Same suits. Same calm expressions. No shouting. No weapons drawn. Just determination. Connor whispered, "Don't use your powers unless..." "They're already using something on us." Jade cut in, voice trembling. "I can feel a pressure," emotional suppression. "They're trying to dull us." "Does it work?" Ethan asked. Jade smirked despite the fear. "On them, maybe. Not on me." The men approached slowly, confidently. One spoke, calm, rehearsed. "Come with us. It's safer if we talk." Connor stepped forward, shoulders squared. "We're not going anywhere with you." The man didn't even blink. "You don't understand what you are." Sophie's voice came out sharp. "We do more than you." Before anyone else could react, Dylan slammed his hand against the metal railing. The ground shook. A controlled tremor rippled through the loading dock. The men stumbled. "Go!" Connor shouted. They sprinted toward the spiral staircase leading to the boarding ramp. One agent reached for Connor's jacket. and was yanked backward by something invisible. Ethan appeared long enough to shove him into a railing. "You're welcome," he panted, then vanished again. Another agent lunged toward Jade. She inhaled sharply and pushed her power outward. A shock wave of fear slammed into the man like a physical force. He collapsed, gasping, shaking uncontrollably. Mia extended her hands instinctively. A cluster of metal cargo barriers lifted into the air, blocking the staircase as they flew upward. The agents were trapped behind tons of steel. Sophie had a flash of vision, the ramp lifting. "Jump!" she yelled. Without hesitation, the group leapt onto the ramp as it began to rise with the ferry. The metal clanged beneath their feet. They grabbed onto the railing, rain soaking their faces. On the dock below, the agents looked up, furious, helpless. The leader cupped his hands around his mouth, shouting over the storm, "You can't run forever." Connor leaned over the railing, rain dripping from his hair. "We don't need forever." The ferry engines roared. The ramp finished lifting, and the distance grew. 6 friends stood together on the deck, drenched, shaking, breathing hard. Free, for now. Ethan looked at them, rain pouring down his face. "We just escaped the government strike team." Mia corrected him softly. "No, we just chose our side." The ferry pushed forward into the dark channel, carrying them toward open water, away from England, and toward the desert that started everything. Chapter 34. Crossing the Line. English Channel, 3:26 a.m. The ferry cut through the cold black water, its engines thundering somewhere beneath their feet. Above them, the sky was nothing but fog and darkness, the kind of night where the horizon disappeared and the world became a blank canvas. They stood on the upper deck, wind ripping at their jackets. For the first time in days, no one was running, but no one felt safe. "Okay," Connor said, gripping the railing. "Next steps." Sophie sat on a bench, knees pulled up to her chest, staring at the waves below. "We don't need next steps," Ethan muttered. "We need a miracle." Dylan leaned against the wall, eyes closed, tracking vibrations through the deck plating. "No pursuit on the water," he said. "No drones. No engines tailing us." Jade exhaled sharply, clutching her arms around herself. "That doesn't calm me. That terrifies me." They looked at her. She wasn't being dramatic. She was drowning in emotion, not her own, theirs. Jade lifted her head, eyes shining with frustration. "You're all terrified," she snapped, "and I can feel it, every second. Your doubt, your panic, your guilt. I feel everything." Sophie spoke gently. "You're not alone." Jade shook her head. "I'm drowning." Connor unfolded a paper map, fighting the wind. "We get to France," he said. "From there, Amsterdam. Then flights to Australia." Mia interrupted, voice soft, cracking. "And then what, Connor? We live in the desert? Forever?" Connor's jaw tightened. "We find the elder. We get answers." Mia stood, stepping toward him. "What if we don't want answers?" Her voice trembled. "What if we just want our lives back?" Silence. Even the wind stopped feeling like noise. It felt like judgment. Ethan stared at the ocean, jaw clenched. "I can turn invisible," he said. "And yet, somehow, I've never felt more seen." Dylan opened his eyes. "I don't think these powers are just abilities," he murmured. "I think they're alive, like they want something from us." Jade's voice dropped to a whisper. "What if the powers aren't the gift? What if we are—" Sophie's head snapped up. She wasn't looking at them. She was looking through them. She was somewhere else. Her pupils dilated. The wind around her seemed to pause. Connor moved toward her. "Sophie." She didn't blink. Her voice came out layered, like someone else was speaking through her. "Power demands purpose." Connor froze. Dylan backed away. Mia grabbed Jade's hand. Ethan whispered, "Sophie?" Sophie suddenly gasped, her breath catching like she'd been underwater. Her eyes refocused. She looked terrified. "I saw the elder," she whispered. "He was so close I could feel his breath." And he said. She didn't finish, because in her mind the rest of the message was clear. Not all who awaken remain together. Sophie stood up and walked to the railing, staring into the abyss of water and fog. Ethan approached carefully. "You okay?" She shook her head. "No, because whatever we think we're running toward, we might be running straight into the reason we were chosen." Connor joined her. "We're in this together," he said. Sophie didn't look away from the water. "No," she whispered. "We're on this ferry together. That's not the same thing." The fog swallowed the ship as it sailed onward, into darkness, into the unknown. Chapter 35. Calais. The ferry horn echoed through the cold dawn as the massive gates lowered and the passengers began to disembark. 6 figures meshed with the crowd, heads down, backpacks slung over their shoulders. No talking, no eye contact, not until they were out. Connor was the first to step off the ramp and onto French soil. The asphalt felt damp under his boots. The morning haze curled around them like a warning. "Welcome to Europe," he muttered, voice roughened by lack of sleep. Mia forced a shaky smile, more like "welcome to running for our lives." Sophie didn't reply. She couldn't. A pulse kept thudding at the base of her skull, like a heartbeat that wasn't hers. Images flickered at the edge of her vision. Red earth, a carved symbol, the Elder's eyes. Since the moment Jade saved her brother, her powers had changed, evolved. Ethan adjusted the hood of his sweatshirt and glanced over his shoulder. "They're here," he whispered. "Who?" Jade asked. "Not who. More than one." Dylan closed his eyes for a second, focusing. He didn't see things. He felt them. Vibrations, frequencies, footsteps, weight shifts, patterns. "There are patrols," Dylan said. "Security teams. Not random." Connor clenched his jaw. Port security or something else? "Something else," Sophie murmured, voice distant. "They're looking for anomalies." Mia exhaled sharply. "Meaning us." Connor motioned them forward. "Move and stay casual." They passed through the customs hall, blending into the flow of tourists and truck drivers. The fluorescent lights hummed above them, and every beep of a passport scanner made their nerves spike. As they neared the exit, Dylan suddenly grabbed Connor's arm. "Stop." Connor froze. Dylan lowered his voice to barely a breath. 2 guards. Right side. Their heart rhythm spikes every time someone with a passport passes. "Searching for something?" Connor asked. "Searching for someone." Mia swallowed hard. "Okay, I can confuse them. Just don't make eye contact." She placed a hand against her chest, inhaled slowly, and allowed her ability to spread outward like a soft ripple across a lake. Her power wasn't physical. It was emotional influence, a subtle push, a gentle suggestion. You don't care. You have no reason to pay attention. The guards blinked, lost focus, then turned away. "Go," Mia whispered. They slipped through the checkpoint, unnoticed, down in the underground parking area. Concrete pillars stretched in every direction. Rows of cars. Delivery vans. Silence, except for the hum of security cameras. "We need a vehicle," Connor said. "Something not traceable." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Traceable in a parking garage filled with cameras? Sure, why not?" "I can take care of the cameras," Jade said. She placed her hand on the metal frame of the nearest pillar. A shock passed through her, and instantly the cameras flickered and went black. Dylan stared. "You short-circuited the feed." "Yeah," Jade said, shrugging. "Guess saving my brother unlocked upgrades." They found a delivery van with the keys, still in ignition. Connor slid into the driver's seat. Ethan climbed into the passenger side, ready to vanish if anyone approached. The engine rumbled to life. Just before Connor shifted into gear, Sophie went still, like someone had pressed pause on her. "Soph," Jade whispered. "You okay?" Sophie's eyes glazed over, pupils dilating. A vision hit her. Not fragments, not flashes. A full scene. Amsterdam. A narrow street. A house with the Elder's marking carved into the wood above a doorframe. And then a whisper. The Elder's voice echoing inside her skull. "Not all of you will make it." Sophie gasped and snapped back, grabbing Connor's arm. "We have to go. Now." Connor didn't hesitate. He slammed his foot on the accelerator. The The van shot out of the parking structure and onto the road leading toward the A16 motorway. The port shrank behind them, swallowed by fog. Only when they had merged with traffic, miles away, did anyone dare to speak. "What did you see?" Dylan asked. Sophie stared straight ahead, hands shaking. "A place. In Amsterdam. A warning." Her voice trembled. "Someone's waiting for us, and someone won't make it." Silence filled the van. Jade turned to look out the rear window. On the top floor of the parking structure, half hidden in shadow, stood a single man in a dark coat. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just watched the van disappear. And Jade knew. He wasn't guessing who they were. He knew. Chapter 36. Revelation. Amsterdam, the mark on the door. The boat slipped away from the quay as soon as they stepped onto the pavement. Amsterdam was waking up. Bicycles slicing to the morning air, trams humming like veins of electricity. The city felt alive in a way that made the six of them feel painfully exposed. Ethan pulled his hood lower. "Next time," he muttered. "Can we teleport somewhere warm? I'm freezing." Jade didn't answer. She was staring at Sophie, who had gone completely silent since they left the station. Sophie's eyes were distant, not spaced out, but connected, like she was listening to something no one else could hear. "Which way?" Connor asked her gently. Her finger lifted, trembling. "Over the canal. Then left. Keep walking until it feels wrong." They followed her through a narrow labyrinth of crooked houses and bridges. The canals reflected the pale morning sun, breaking it into shards of silver. Mia hugged herself tightly. "This place feels haunted." "No," Dylan murmured, touching the railing of a bridge. "It feels old, like the ground remembers things." They continued until Sophie suddenly stopped. A small wooden house stood alone between two taller buildings. It looked abandoned, shutters cracked, paint peeling. But on the door, a symbol burned into the wood. The same spiral intersected by a vertical line. The one the elder had drawn in the sand that night in the desert before giving them the powers. Ethan stepped back. Nope. We're not doing mysteries in abandoned houses. That's how horror movies start." Connor placed his hand on the door. "We didn't come here to walk away." The door creaked open. Inside, dust floated in the air like sleeping stars. The room smelled of old paper and forgotten rain. On the walls were maps, dozens of them. World maps, ancient maps, satellite photos. Red threads connected places around the globe. Australia, Peru, Iceland, Japan, and Manchester. Jade found a table covered in yellowed newspapers. Unexplained mass healing in hospital, 1987. 5 missing students in the Norwegian mountains, 1954. The Chosen Six, urban legend or secret society. Mia's hand shook as she lifted a photograph. Black and white, faded corners. 6 young people, standing together in the desert. Their posture, their formation, it was them. Same positions, same expressions, but dated in 1962. On the back, in elegant handwriting, "Those who receive the gift always return." Jade's voice cracked. "Are we reincarnated?" Connor swallowed hard. "No, it means we're part of something that repeats." Sophie opened a leather-bound journal lying on a desk. Inside, pages described rituals, stars aligning ancient laws. A passage was underlined repeatedly. The power is passed on every generation to 6. Bound by purpose. Bound by sacrifice. Sophie flipped the page. Her blood ran cold. One of them is always lost. Mia took a step back. Lost how? No one answered. Suddenly, creak. A sound. Someone was downstairs. Connor raised his hand silently. The group froze. Dylan closed his eyes, touching the floor. There are 2 people, moving up the stairs. Ethan whispered, voice tight. "Guys, we're cornered." Jade took a deep breath, eyes glowing with a strange, fierce calm. "Then we don't hide anymore." The door downstairs slammed open. Footsteps. Fast. Heavy. Sophie closed the journal. Her voice barely more than a whisper. This wasn't a warning. It was preparation. The final line of the journal echoed in her mind. Once the cycle begins, They will be hunted. The footsteps reach the top stair. The door handle turned. Fade to black. Chapter 37. The photograph. Amsterdam, midnight. Rain hits the glass like 1,000 needles. The 6 of them freeze as the 2 armed men step inside the abandoned townhouse. Sophie, door. Now. Connor whispers. She tries. The door behind them slams shut on its own. Dylan flinches. This house isn't old. It's reacting to us. Ethan takes a slow breath. Try and steady his power. If he can turn invisible, maybe he can. Nothing. His body flickers. Light bending around him for half a second, then snaps back. Panic kills concentration. Jade's pulse explodes in her chest. Not from fear, but from the overwhelming wave of emotion flooding off the strangers. Cold. Mechanical. Purpose. These men feel nothing. Siamo for Gotti. Jade breathes. The taller man raises a device, a slim black tube with a blinking violet light. Connor feels something tighten around his skull, like a pressure clamp. His voice, usually enough to bend others, fails. Don't bother using it, the man says calmly. We know what you are. Mia floats an inch off the floor. Panic makes her power spike. The shorter man points a gun toward her. Mia, don't. Ethan yanks her back down. The tall man taps the violet device again. A shockwave, subtle but powerful. Every light bulb in the house flickers. Dylan stumbles as the ground vibrates beneath him like rippling water. They came prepared. Sophie's heart slams. And then, a flash, not of light, of future. She sees it. Connor pulling everyone toward a stairwell, metal stairs, rain, a boat. Salta, she screams. Connor doesn't question her. They run, up the metal staircase, boots pounding, breath sharp. The men chase them through the hallway, guns drawn. Dylan slams a hand on a metal pipe along the wall. He feels where it leads. Straight up, this way. They burst onto the roof, wind, rain, and chaos. Below, a canal boat moves slowly under the streetlights. Sophie, Connor says, are you sure? Sophie nods, shaking. I've already seen us on that boat. They jump, one after another. Bodies hit the canvas awning of the boat like dropped luggage. Ethan lands last, grabbing Jade's hand before she slips. They roll onto the deck, breathless. The boat keeps moving. The men disappear from view. Only then do they dare to breathe. Jade hugs her knees, teeth chattering. They're hunting us. They're not hunting us, Connor corrects, voice low. They're tracking us. Everyone looks at Sophie. She's staring at her phone. The screen is lit. A new message. No text, just a photo. A picture taken from above, of them on the boat, right now. Rain dripping. Dylan looking back. Jade's hair stuck to her face. Ethan still holding her hand. Timestamp. 014 sender. Unknown. The boat horn echoes through the canal as the truth hits them all at once. Someone knows exactly where they are. Someone is always one step ahead. Sophie whispers, voice trembling. They're not just following us. They're watching. Chapter 38. Shadows in Amsterdam. The door of the hostel room shuts with a hollow metallic click. Room 23. 4 bunk beds. Damp walls. A faint smell of bleach and old carpet. They don't turn on the lights. Connor drops his backpack to the floor and locks the door. Phone's off. No sound. No windows. Jade sits on the edge of a bunk, arms wrapped around herself. Her voice is a whisper. They knew exactly where we were. Sophie is still holding her phone, knuckles white. They took that photo from above, like they were in the ceiling. Dylan stands near the radiator, eyes half closed as if listening to something underground. Someone's outside. 2 people. Heavy steps. Not police. Ethan's jaw clenches. We should have fought them. I should have. No, Connor cuts him off. You losing control is what almost got us killed. Ethan looks away, shame burning in his chest. Mia suddenly shifts on her mattress, breathing too fast. A water bottle on the nightstand trembles and rises an inch off the surface. Jade snaps toward her. Mia, Focus. Mia blinks. Startled, the bottle drops and hits the floor. Silence. They are all breaking. Jade whispers, I can feel everyone's fear, like it's mine. She presses a hand to her chest. I can't breathe. Connor moves closer, voice low, steady. Listen to me. They want us scared. Fear makes us reckless. So what? Ethan mutters, we're supposed to act normal? After someone literally hunted us through a house. Jade wipes her face. We need a plan. Sophie finally speaks, voice trembling. There's someone who can help us. Someone who's been sending me messages since the accident in Manchester. Connor stiffens. The anonymous text. Sophie nods and unlocks her phone. A message appears on the screen. Don't go back to the farm. They're already there. Dylan curses under his breath. They're tracking us through the city. No, Sophie whispers. Through us. She looks up and says something that chills the room. They know our powers. Ethan flinches. That's impossible. Sophie shakes her head. When we were in that house, the device the man used, it reacted to us, not the room. Us. Connor sits on the floor, elbows on his knees. We need to disappear. Again. Sophie swallows. To disappear, we have to split up. The room explodes with objections. Are you insane? No way. They'll pick us off. Sophie holds her ground. They expect us to stay together. But if we divide, Jade and Dylan take the metro. Ethan and Mia blend with crowds. Connor and I use the canals. Different routes. Same destination. Destination? Jade asks. Sophie's voice becomes a whisper. The one person who knows the GCRI and survived them. Connor exhales. All right, we split. Meet back here in 48 hours. As they pack, Ethan pauses at the small security camera in the hallway, staring back at its dark glass eye. For a moment, the camera moves, tracking him. Ethan freezes. Did you see that? But before he can speak, Mia pulls him away. Down the hallway, behind a closed lens, a red light begins to blink, recording. Somewhere in a dark control room, a voice murmurs. Team is confirmed. Target's still together. Phase 2 begins. Chapter 39. 2 out of 6. Amsterdam fractured into 3 escape routes. Jade and Dylan slipped into the metro. Ethan and Mia vanished into the crowd. Connor and Sophie followed the canals, staying in shadow. Jade and Dylan, Metro Line 52. The escalator rattles beneath them, metal vibrating under Dylan's fingertips. You're doing that thing again, Jade whispers. What thing? You're listening to the floor. He doesn't deny it. He kneels briefly and presses his palm to the rail. Deep under the city, vibrations pulse like heartbeats. Someone's running, Dylan says quietly, fast, trying to catch this train. Jade feels panic rising. Not hers, but stolen from every anxious commuter around her. She tastes fear like metal on her tongue. Block them out, Dylan says. You told me once emotions aren't commands. She nods, but her breath is shaking. The metro arrives. They step inside and sit by the window. Doors close. Someone forces themselves between the closing doors. A man in a dark coat, earpiece in his ear. Jade grabs Dylan's wrist. He's one of them. Ethan and Mia, Calverstrat. The shopping street is packed. Mia walks fast, hood up, hands in her pockets. Ethan scans every reflection in every shop window. You're flickering again, Mia murmurs. Ethan looks down at his hand. It phases in and out like a glitching hologram. Better flickering than dead, he mutters. Behind them, a tall woman in a gray coat accelerates. Mia whispers, block her. A bike locked to a railing twists, the chain snapping. The bicycle crashes down right in front of the woman. Pedestrians curse, blocking the path. Ethan and Mia disappear into the crowd. Connor and Sophie, along the canal. They move quietly, avoiding bridges and open squares. Sophie's hand suddenly shoots out, stopping Connor. Don't cross. A flash, a deja vu. 3 men waiting at the far end of the bridge. Connor doesn't question her. He turns into a narrow alley instead. You're getting better at this, he whispers. Sophie nods, but she looks exhausted. Every time I see the future, it takes a piece of me. They keep moving. Back at the hostel, the meeting point, the lobby clock ticks. Connor and Sophie arrive first. Ethan and Mia enter 2 minutes later. But Jade and Dylan's bunks are empty. Connor checks his phone. No messages. Sophie whispers, "They should have been here." A vibration. Ethan pulls out his phone. Unknown number. A photo message. It shows Jade on the metro platform. Hands restrained behind her back. Eyes wide. Dylan is beside her, unconscious. Below the image, a text. 2 out of 6 don't make this harder than it has to be. Mia gasps. Connor takes the phone. Hands trembling but jaw steady. "They didn't follow us," he says. "They hunted us." Chapter 40. The Extraction. Amsterdam. For 17 a.m. rain falls sideways, blown by the wind that sweeps over the industrial docks. Connor, Sophie, Mia, and Ethan run between shipping containers, breath ragged. Jade and Dylan are somewhere in this maze. Taken less than 2 hours ago. No guns, no shouting, Connor whispers. "They want us alive." Ethan clenches his jaw. "Yeah, to lock us in a cage." Sophie rests a hand on the cold metal of the container and closes her eyes. A deja vu hits. Jade tied to a chair, a warehouse window, a red light blinking. She opens her eyes. Container D12. Window facing the river. "That way." Connor doesn't question. They sprint. Mia stops suddenly. "What?" Ethan asks. She lowers her voice. "Someone's here." Between the containers. Figures dressed in black move silently. Not military. Too precise. No weapons drawn. They follow patterns, closing escape routes. "They're hurting us," Mia says. Connor locks eyes with her. "Then we don't run in the direction they want." He sprints toward the wrong corridor, the narrowest, darkest one. Mia raises both hands. Metal screams. A huge shipping crane shifts, blocking the path of 2 agents. Ethan smirks. Love when she does that. But 3 agents drop from above, landing like ghosts. Ethan vanishes. Not fully, flickers, distortions, but enough to distract them. He taps one agent on the shoulder. The man spins. Ethan appears behind him. Boo. Mia sweeps her hand, and a stack of pallets crashes onto the path, blocking reinforcements. They reach D12. Sophie points to the upper window. There. Connor pushes the door. Locked. Dylan would feel the vibration. Jade would sense the fear inside. They are not here to think. They are here to act. Ethan phases out, invisible, slips through a side gap in the metal door. 2 seconds. 3. Then the lock clicks from the inside. The door swings open. Jade sits tied to a chair, wrists bound but unhurt. Dylan next to her, conscious but dazed. Am I dreaming? Jade whispers, eyes filling. Nope. Ethan cuts the zip ties. Worst rescue team ever. But hey, we're here. Jade stands, dizzy. Dylan holds the side of his head. Vibrations, he murmurs. They use some kind of frequency to knock me out. Connor steps closer. Can you walk? Dylan nods. Sophie freezes. She gets another flash, bright, violent. A spotlight, a cord tightening, a voice. And the road. Her eyes widen. We have to move. Now. They run toward the exit. They don't make it 2 meters. Floodlights explode to life, blinding. A voice, calm, amplified. Stop running. We are not here to harm you. From the shadows emerge dozens of agents. No guns, just presence, like a wall of inevitability. Ethan tries to vanish again, nothing. Connor steps forward. You're not taking us. A woman walks into the light, not armed, black coat, hair pulled back, eyes sharp but not cruel. Dr. Evelyn Rhodes. You already know, she says softly. We don't want to kill you. She looks at each of them as if she already knows their names. Jade, Connor, Dylan, Mia, Sophie, Ethan. Jade's voice trembles. How do you know? Rhodes raises one hand. The agents stop moving. You're powerful, but untrained, and the world is changing faster than you think. She meets their eyes, one by one. There are others like you, and we need you. Dylan whispers, stunned. Others? Rhodes nods. We found the first in Tokyo, a second in New York, a child in Brazil. Sophie's heart stutters. We're not the only ones? No, Rhodes says. And if we don't control this, someone else will. The rain hits harder. The city hums. They're surrounded, outnumbered. But this time, they're being invited, not hunted. Rhodes extends her hand. Come with us. Let me show you what you really are. Chapter 41. Project Horizon. Somewhere outside Amsterdam underground structure, unknown coordinates. The elevator ride is silent. Smooth steel walls. No buttons. No reflection. Just descent. Jade, Dylan, Mia, Ethan, Connor, and Sophie stand surrounded by four silent agents, all expressionless. No weapons visible. Dr. Evelyn Rhodes faces forward, hands clasped behind her back. When the doors slide open, the world changes. A vast, white corridor stretches ahead, modern, clinical, with glass panels revealing rooms full of screens, data projections, and scientists in lab coats. It doesn't look like a prison. It looks like NASA mixed with a military intelligence unit. Ethan mutters under his breath. This feels illegal. Rhodes doesn't turn. If it were legal, you would have read about it in the news. They reach a large circular room. A holographic globe floats in the center, pinpointed with illuminated dots. Tokyo, New York, Sao Paulo, Cape Town, Sydney. Sit. Rhodes instructs. They do. The lights dim. The hologram shifts. Video 1, Tokyo. A teen girl on a rooftop. The wind hurls debris toward her and freezes midair. Her palms glow. Video 2, Sao Paulo. A boy levitates above a flooded street. The water bends around him, refusing to touch his skin. Video 3, New York. A young man stares at a security guard. The guard drops his weapon and kneels vacant-eyed. Jade feels her stomach drop. Ethan leans forward. He can control people. Connor's jaw tightens. Like me, Rhodes turns to them. You are not alone. The world is changing. She presses a key. The hologram shifts. New dossier files appear. Project Horizon. Active subjects. 6 profiles load on screen. Their faces. Their names. Date of first recording. 2 days after their graduation ceremony in Manchester. Sophie's voice cracks. You monitored us before we had powers. Rhodes finally turns toward them. You were already special. The energy in the desert didn't give you abilities. It awakened something already inside you. Dylan shakes his head. No, we chose this. We went to Australia. You followed a path that had been waiting for you. Rhodes gestures to the hologram. You are the strongest group we've ever seen. 6 gifted individuals, each with a unique capability. She walks slowly around them, like addressing soldiers. Jade, empathic amplification. You feel what no one else can. Dylan, geokinetic resonance. Earth and structure respond to your awareness. Mia, telekinesis. Raw force. Sophie, precognition. A rare, dangerous gift. Ethan, photokinetic camouflage. Light bends at your will. Connor, neurocommand. You bend decisions, intentions, obedience. Ethan shifts uncomfortable. Connor meets Rhodes' eyes, voice low. So what's the catch? Rhodes stops in front of them. No catch. A choice. She presses a final button. The hologram shifts into a new screen. Project Horizon. Proposal Elite Unit. Identity protected. Missions classified. You will never have to run again. Join us. Rhodes says. You'll be protected, trained, respected. Mia swallows. And if we say no, Rhodes doesn't hesitate. You go back to running. Hunted. Forever. The silence that follows is suffocating. Jade's voice is a whisper. You want to own us. Rhodes smiles without warmth. We want to guide you. Connor stands. The chair scrapes the floor. No one owns us. Rhodes doesn't flinch. She simply steps closer, voice soft and dangerous. Freedom is an illusion. Power needs direction. Sophie looks at the globe again. Every dot representing someone like them. Jade squeezes her hand. We won't be your soldiers. Rhodes tilts her head slightly. You will be. The doors slide open behind them. Guards enter, without weapons, but with certainty. Choose wisely, Rhodes murmurs. Chapter 42. The Choice. The sliding door seals behind them with a soft, final hiss. A perfect circle of white light surrounds them. The six stand together again. Jade grips Dylan's brother's hand, as if needing physical proof that the nightmare is over. Mia keeps rubbing her wrists, still feeling the ghost trace of cold, still even though she's no longer wearing restraints. Connor says nothing. He doesn't need to. The tension in the room bends around him like gravity. Dr. Rhodes' voice descends from above, calm, measured, almost gentle. Now you know what you're capable of. He walks into the circular chamber, hands behind his back. No guards, no guns, just glass and silence. That's the strategy. Make them feel safe while studying them. Ethan steps forward, still charged the adrenaline of what he uncovered. We're not staying, he says. Rhodes doesn't even look at him. He smiles at Sophie, as though she is the only one who truly understands. You've seen it, haven't you? The future. Sophie freezes. She still has flashes of the induced visions, blurry images of them cornered, chased, dying. But now, something clicks. The visions didn't come from her. They were pulled out of her. You manipulated it, Sophie whispers. You showed me what you wanted me to see. Rhodes doesn't deny it. Fear reveals truth. Pressure reveals potential. Jade shakes her head, shocked. You used our powers against us. No, Rhodes' tone stays maddeningly calm. I accelerated what would have happened anyway. Mia steps forward, arms crossed, a wall of defiance. Why? What do you even want from us? Rhodes finally stops walking. He looks at each of them, slowly, deliberately, as if seeing more than faces. When he speaks, his voice carries the weight of someone who has waited years to say this. We want to offer you a place where you don't have to hide. The chamber lights dim. A transparent panel slides open on the far wall. Behind it, a large open space. People their age, some training, some chatting over coffee. Powers visible, controlled, accepted. Ethan's face drains of color. I saw them. I thought they were prisoners. Rhodes meets his eyes. No, they're employees. Connor explodes. So we become what? Weapons. You become purpose. Silence crashes over them. Jade pushes a hand through her hair, eyes trembling. You don't get it. We made a promise. We swore we wouldn't use our abilities. Rhodes tilts his head gently, like a professor correcting a talented but naive student. You made that promise before the world needed you. The word needed hits them like a blade. Connor feels it. The psychological push, the emotional leverage. We're leaving, he says, low, final. Rhodes blinks slowly. Not angry, not threatened, amused. You think you still have that choice. The floor vibrates. Panels descend from the walls. Thick, metallic shields sealing them in. The chamber becomes a vault. Ethan steps back. Sophie sees a flash, a locking door, flashing red lights, a future that is starting in real time. Rhodes watches them from behind the reinforced glass. You are not prisoners. A beat, the faintest smile. Yet, the lights cut out, pure darkness. Chapter 43. Break the lab. The moment the lockdown sirens began to scream, the air changed. Harsh red lights pulse overhead, washing the walls of the containment chamber in crimson flashes. The metal room, cold, windowless, unapologetically sterile, felt smaller with every alarm. Dr. Rhodes stood behind the glass panel of the observation deck, hands folded behind his back as if this were a simple lecture, as if they were data. As you can see, Rhodes' voice crackled through the speaker. Containment is absolute. Your abilities are fascinating, but uncontrolled. You'll stay here until we understand them. Connor's jaw clenched. Jade paced, her breathing growing fast and shallow. Ethan tested the door again and again, even knowing it wouldn't budge. Mia hovered inches off the floor, without realizing it. Dylan pressed his palm to the wall, feeling for something. Sophie stared at the ceiling, eyes unfocused, seeing something no one else could. Rhodes added, calm and clinical, "You are not prisoners. You are assets." That word broke something inside Connor. He turned to the group. "We're leaving. Now." Jade's voice trembled. "Connor, there's no exit." "Not visible," Dylan corrected. Eyes shut tight, tracing vibrations through the metal with his fingertips. "But the structure isn't uniform." Sophie's breath hitched. A flash, bright, sudden, hit her mind. She saw the wall bursting apart. She saw Mia pushing energy through it. She saw all of them escaping. Her eyes shot open. There, right side of the north wall, 30 degrees off-center. Connor didn't hesitate. "Mia, focus everything you have." Mia swallowed, then stepped forward. She exhaled slowly and raised her hands toward the metal. Jade closed her eyes, pushing calm courage into the group. Ethan disappeared into thin air, just removed from sight. Dylan guided Mia's stance. "That's the weak spot. Feel it." Connor placed his palm on Mia's shoulder. "On my count, 1, 2, 3. The world snapped. The room exploded with light. White, blinding, violent. Boom. Metal tore open like paper. Debris scattered across the floor, and cold air rushed through the new gap. The red alarm lights shifted to strobing white. Security shutters started descending around the hole. "Move," Connor ordered. They sprinted into the corridor. Armed guards turned the corner just as Ethan reappeared behind them, kicking a gun from the nearest hand. Jade pushed a wave of raw terror into a group of soldiers, and all three collapsed, paralyzed by a fear they couldn't explain. Dylan led the way. 2 turns right. Emergency exit. "How do you know that?" Ethan hissed. "Because the floor is talking," Dylan said, not joking. They ran. Rhodes' voice crackled through the intercom, now frantic. "Do not let them reach the surface. Do not let them leave." Sophie shouted from behind. "Left!" Door closing in 5 seconds. Mia lifted her hand and, with a burst of telekinesis, ripped the security shutter back up. They burst through the final corridor, toward a steel emergency hatch. Connor grabbed the handle, turned back to the others, and said quietly, "We're not their experiment." They pushed the door open and sprinted into the night. Wind, darkness, freedom. Behind them, the compound erupted with alarms as an unmarked helicopter lifted off the roof. Searchlights swept the ground. They had escaped. Chapter 44. Back to the horizon. The night smelled like rust and rain. They ran until their lungs burned and their legs trembled, not daring to look back. The GCRI compound shrank into darkness behind them, sirens fading into the distance. Ethan pushed open the side door of an abandoned warehouse near the docks. Salt water, oil, damp wood. "Inside," Connor ordered. The door slammed shut. Darkness swallowed them. No lights, no windows, only silence and the sound of their breathing. Jade slid down against a crate, hugging her knees. Her chest rose and fell too fast. "I can feel every emotion in this room," she whispered. "Fear, panic, anger, it's so loud." Dylan knelt beside her. "Listen to mine. Just mine." He placed a hand gently on her shoulder. His voice grounded her, low and steady. "We're alive. That's what matters." Mia paced back and forth, hands trembling. Every metal object around her rattled with each step. Screws vibrating, bolts rolling across the floor. "I can't." "Shut it off," she said, voice tight with panic. A rusted toolbox slid 2 meters to the side without her touching it. "This is spiraling. I'm spiraling." Ethan disappeared. Just gone. A second later, his voice echoed from somewhere in the shadows. "They're watching us." He flickered back into view, face pale. I felt eyes. Cameras? Satellites? I don't know. Something is locked onto us. Sophie stood perfectly still in the middle of the room. Her pupils dilated. A vision hit her, a flash of heat and color. A plane, wind whipping through open doors. The endless red desert beneath them. Australia. When she spoke, her voice was distant, certain. "We're not safe here, and we never will be." Connor exhaled slowly, leaning against the wall. He looked exhausted, leader fatigue carved into his expression. "I dragged us into this," he muttered. "All of it. The risk, the danger." "No," Jade whispered. "You gave us a choice." Sophie's voice cut through the air. "We need to go back. To where it started. To Australia. To Lara." The warehouse temperature suddenly dropped. The world felt sharper, more focused. Dylan swallowed. "We don't have tickets. We don't have passports." "Then we improvise," Connor said. Mia looked up, eyes burning with something new and fierce. "They won't cage us again." The group stood in a loose circle. The moonlight through a cracked window painted a thin line across the concrete between them. Jade reached out her hand. Connor took it. Then Dylan. Then Sophie. Then Ethan. Then Mia. 6 hands. 6 pulses. 6 destinies. Ethan whispered, almost reverently, back to the horizon. Sophie closed her eyes. "I saw it," she said. "The desert is calling us." And for the first time since everything began, they weren't running away from something. They were running toward it. Chapter 45. The Return. The wind stung their faces as dawn crept across the horizon. They stood on the edge of the harbor, hidden behind shipping containers, the sea crashing violently against the concrete. Their breath turned white in the cold Manchester air. No money, no documents, no escape route. Only one possibility left: each other. Connor exhaled slowly. "This is the only way." Jade swallowed. "And what if it doesn't work?" Sophie's voice was soft but steady. "It will. He's calling us." Dylan closed his eyes and pressed his hand against the ground. "There's a direction, a frequency, like the earth is humming to us." Mia looked at her hands, already glowing faintly with energy she didn't understand but finally embraced. "I'm done being afraid." Ethan stepped forward and placed his hand in the center of the circle. "Let's go home." They linked hands. 6 palms. 6 heartbeats. Jade felt the emotions first. Fear, hope, determination, all weaving together like threads of light. Connor's voice guided them, calm and commanding, synchronizing their breaths. "One thought," he whispered. "One place." Sophie's eyes glazed with vision, waves of heat, red sand, the immortal sun rising over Uluru. Focus on the desert. Focus on him. Mia lifted her free hand slightly, energy spiraling outward, rattling the air. Dylan's voice trembled. "I can feel it. Something is responding." A thrumming vibration rose beneath their feet. Ethan's outline began to blur, shifting, sparking, half here, half not. Jade gasped. Light exploded from their linked hands, igniting the space around them in a blinding, swirling corona. Connor shouted over the roar. "Don't let go." The light intensified, white at the center, blood red at the edges. The world bent. The harbor, the city, the cold, the night, all dissolved into a cascade of colors and heat. Their feet lifted off the ground, not from Mia's power, but from the pull of something ancient, something older than their fear. The light collapsed inward. Flash, heat, silence. The 6 landed on warm sand, collapsing to their knees. The sky bled orange. Wind carried the scent of eucalyptus and dust. They were back, in the middle of the desert, under the endless red horizon. A shadow approached, bare feet, tribal paint, ancient calm. The Aborigine elder stood before them, the same man who had touched Mia's leg and altered all their lives. His eyes held no surprise, only recognition, as if he had always known they would return. Beside him, Lara smiled, tears shimmering under the rising sun. "We heard your call," she said softly. The elder raised a hand toward the horizon. "You did not return because you were chased," he said. "You returned because this is where you belong." Jade stepped forward, voice raw. "What happens now?" The elder smiled, a knowing, timeless smile. "Now your story begins." Behind them, Sophie turned toward the horizon. In the very distance, so faint could be imagination or fate, a red shimmer curved across the sky, like a second dawn. The desert said nothing, but it didn't need to. They were home. This was beyond the red horizon. by Adeline Pierce. For more full audiobooks, subscribe to the Inktail channel and join us for the next journey. Thank you for listening.